10 years ago, a group of gods turned everyone on Earth into players of a sadistic game that forced them to kill monsters in real life, or be killed. Sahan Kim is the only survivor of this horrible world, and after living till the end of humanity, he receives a bad end. When he's given the chance to go back in time and start a second playthrough, our MC is determined to change the course of events and beat the gods at their own game. He wakes up to a clear sunny sky and birds chirping around him. Somehow he returned to the point before the game started, and even his status window hasn't been unlocked yet. A woman walks up to him while he's in a daze and asks him what's going on in his mind. This girl is Jisoo Han, and she's someone he was close to back in college. She's a year younger than him, and he remembers that she took good care of others and often came to talk to him when he was alone. They were on good terms but never got to open up to each other until the very end. She jokingly asks him if he's out of it from playing video games all night and reminds him his GPA will tank this semester if he doesn't focus up. His GPA isn't a big deal since the semester won't even get a chance to start, but she doesn't know that for now. He's more focused on the fact that the system was telling the truth despite everything. It really did send him back to the very first day when all the chaos started in their world. The day is August 17th, and if he remembers correctly, that's the day when the game started. Jisoo notices him spacing out again and asks him if he really did stay up playing video games all night. She's not wrong since he just finished playing a non-stop game of life and death. She continues to warn him about their classes and the impending exams that will start soon, but instead of arguing back, he thanks her for her help, which causes her to turn and blush. Jisoo was always looking out for him in his previous life and he was always thankful for her, but he never got to say it as much as he wanted. Meanwhile, Jisoo notices something that makes her want to move somewhere else. It's Jonghyun Lee, an arrogant creep who used to pick on Sihoon and labeled him a video game addict. RMC can't even remember what happened to him during his first playthrough. That probably means that he didn't even make it through the first stage. For someone as insignificant as that, there's no reason for him to move. Before, RMC couldn't stand the sight of the guy, but after everything he's been through, there's no reason to care about someone like that in his mind. It's already been 10 years since he lived through those kinds of days. Jisoo doesn't feel comfortable about being there, and it'd be annoying for her if he tried to talk to her, so she still wants them to go somewhere else before they leave though. She notices something going on a little bit away from them. The word she says reminds him of what happened 10 years ago, just before the game started. They were in the middle of some small talk on that day as well, when Jisoo pointed out that something was going on in the distance. She thinks they are shooting a movie, when in reality it's something completely different. Little green hands burst out from the ground as goblins pull themselves into their world. Shrieking and laughing in joy, the people around them initially don't think it's anything serious. And some people even pull out their phones thinking someone is filming a movie. And these are just little kids wearing costumes. Jisoo also wants to check out what's going on, but Sihoon tells her to hold on for a little bit. 10 years ago he followed her just like she wanted him to, and they both took a look at those monsters and paid a horrible price for it. People gather around the goblins to take pictures, and it doesn't take long for someone to get stabbed. The goblins start attacking everything on sight, cutting down people and laughing in joy as blood splatters everywhere. It doesn't take long for everyone to figure out that these are indeed real monsters, and they all start to panic with the sudden appearance of the monsters. The crowd started running away, but that's the worst possible decision they could have made. Goblins aren't that much stronger than an adult male, so to get kills they love to prey on the weak. That means turning your back to a goblin is as good as asking them to kill you. Goblins kill for sport, and when they kill humans they do it with a smile. Jisoo reacts quickly and grabs Sihoon's hand, but a goblin gets to them first and prepares to stab him. 10 years ago he was a weakling and a coward. And when the goblin came to stab them just like now, Jisoo put her life on the line to save him. In his first playthrough he stood frozen behind her as the goblin spilled her blood all over him and the ground. Back then, he left Jisoo behind to die and ran for his life, but now he's a player who has witnessed the world's end. Things are different than they were 10 years ago, and he won't let Jisoo's life be wasted a second time. His settings are still synchronizing from his first playthrough, so he's not as strong as he was back then just yet, but there's no time to waste. He rushes towards the goblin, narrowly dodging a swing from the creature's blade. Then he sends the monster flying with a sharp uppercut, causing the monster to drop its knife in shock. Before it can pick itself up, Si-hoon grabs the knife before it hits the ground and uses it to stab the goblin. The system dings with a notification, informing him that he's the first player to defeat a goblin in this stage. It also informs him that the products from the DLC store are now available for purchase, and all his remaining points have been transferred over from his first playthrough. He also has access to the forums, which is a service that will be greatly useful to him. And with that, the synchronization of his abilities is complete, and his second playthrough truly begins. When a player completes a quest, they gain points depending on their performance. They can then spend those points to gain stats or purchase special items of their choice. Most video games follow these fundamental rules, and the same rules apply to this world that has been turned into a game. That means that since he brought 700,000 points from his first playthrough, he has exclusive access to pay-to-win items compared to newbies. Meanwhile, multiple orbs fly over the campus grounds, watching over everyone in the area. A voice calls out from the sky, welcoming the unwilling players to the game of the gods. From now on, everyone present will have to complete quests to survive, and there will be penalties for people who fail to complete quests. As the people struggle to comprehend that their lives have become video games, Sahan wonders what he should do going forward. If he were to suddenly boost his stats or upgrade his gear, he would definitely catch some unwanted attention. For now, he has to be careful now that they have started spying on them in public. The orbs are observers, and they act as eyes of the gods and the Grandmaster. They can vary in appearance depending on the user, but they all usually look very similar. If they start getting suspicious, it would affect the difficulty level of the quests. They wouldn't let him off easy for just being stronger, and they would make things more difficult as a result. To avoid an outcome like that, he has to try his best not to stand out too much. A goblin charges at him and he grabs it before it can attack, but instead of killing it instantly, he pretends to struggle in hopes that they would think that he's not that powerful. On the other hand, Jisoo looks through the system and the player instructions and starts to understand their situation. She's able to quickly understand that their reality isn't the same one they knew before. The monsters and the weird notification windows are proof enough of that fact. She's surprisingly calm about the whole thing despite the fact that life as they know it has been completely altered, but Si-hoon is also way too calm about the situation. He has also been easily getting rid of monsters, which is a bit suspicious for her. Before they can discuss further, the main quest appears from a notification window. They are to escape from the college campus, and they have a time limit of 2 days to do so. A large number of goblins will start attacking them from before, and they will need to either defeat or avoid them as they try to escape the campus. Rewards will vary for each player depending on their achievements during the quest, so active participation is encouraged from the GM. The quest only has a level E difficulty and a time limit of 2 days, so it should be easy for Si-hoon to finish regardless. He can't spend the time talking to Jisoo, and they have to get moving as fast as they can before the goblins come to them. The monsters notice them chatting and give chase. Si-hoon reacts quickly, grabbing Jisoo's hand and making a break for it before the monsters can get to them as they run. Jisoo notices the goblins attacking other people who are also trying to escape, but there is nothing she can do for them. Eventually, they reach a point of safety and she asks about the others, but Si-hoon tells her that there won't be many casualties yet. A goblin is only as strong as a fully grown man at best, which means that once people start to group up, they should be able to take care of them very easily, that is, at least until the hobgoblin appears. Meanwhile, Si-hoon finally reaches the place he was aiming for from the start. It's a safe zone that he remembers from his previous life back then. He was completely in tears and weak when he accidentally stumbled upon the safe zone. It's a safe area where monsters can't access, which they can use to rest. The goblins that were chasing them manage to catch up and slam their swords into the barrier around the safe area, but they can't make a dent. Eventually, they give up and turn around because they can't get in. This is one of the few places where they will be able to let their guard down, and Si-hoon advises that they spend some time there before they move. For now, he needs to find a way to arm Jisoo properly, or at least to a point where she can handle a goblin on her own. Elsewhere, some students run for their lives from a group of insane-looking goblins. All of a sudden, someone lands right behind them and manages to take them all out with a single hit each in a matter of seconds. The goblins that were chasing them down are all dead on the ground. Jong-yoon recognizes the powerful newcomer as Jisoo, and he can barely understand what's going on. It all started 3 hours earlier when Jisoo was still resting in the safe one with Si-hoon as she's looking through her phone, trying to figure out the current state of the world. Si-hoon is more worried about the eyes watching them. The gods monitor players through an observer for the sole purpose of their own entertainment. When they find a player they consider particularly interesting, They choose them as their avatar and water as they carry out quests. As the game master, the GM also manages the servers and assigns quests. The observer currently watching him in Jisoo is the private observer of Korea. Arcadis, the GM of Korea for now, all he can do is act as boring as possible in hopes that Arcadis will lose interest and leave them alone. Eventually, the observer flies away, leaving them alone. He only waited for half an hour, which shows how impatient he is even in the first round. This impatience was the reason he didn't become a top-tier GM. He doesn't have an ounce of patience in him, which is good for Sehun. All things considered for now, he decides to check out the forums and see what's happening there. A bright flash of light greets him as soon as he clicks the button, but from the lack of a response from Jisoo, it's obvious that he's the only one that can see it. The forum looks like some sort of web browser, and it comes complete with a floating monitor and keyboard. From what he can see, it's full of general discussions and guides. It's essentially a direct copy of regular Earth Internet forums. It even has a chat room. He joins in on the chat room and the system introduces him as Anonymous User 48. As soon as he enters, a user named Greekboss asks him to introduce himself immediately. Luckily for him, it's not required, and the other users lecture the older chatter on the importance of an anonymous chat. The gods in the chat room talk about their servers and the people they've been observing. Then the conversation shifts to the Korean server and the fact that Arcadis is the GM of that place. From what they are discussing, it looks like they consider his quests quite bland. One user in particular talks about how he was about to choose a cute girl as his avatar, but she got taken into a safe zone by some guy. They are most likely talking about him, and Jisoo, the chat room will be essential for him later when he decides to start fishing for information. Next time, he might even try to make a post himself. He'll have to check it periodically later, but right now he's more interested in the DLC store. The interface opens and looks like a large store shelf. Some items are locked behind quests, but from what he's seeing, everything there is incredibly high quality. The item that's locked behind the main quest seems to be the most important, and it looks like it's a player transfer object. He looks through the other items in the digital shelf, and one in particular catches his eye. It's a multiplayer package for people who played their first playthrough on single-player mode. Now they can enjoy their second playthrough with friends. The cube will allow him to form parties with people of his choosing, and members of the party will have special benefits exclusive to them. It costs 20,000 points, but for someone who has saved up to 700,000 points, that's an easy bargain. But if all items in the store cost this much, then he will have to spend his points carefully. A voice catches his attention, and he turns to see someone trying to rally a group of people together. It looks like people are starting to group up, which means that the goblins won't be as much of an issue anymore. The people band together and start using makeshift weapons to push the monsters back. Although their group is not perfect, as they start to fight together, they slowly start figuring out how to take out the little monsters. Jisoo calls out to him, snapping him out from his trance of watching them take out the goblins. It looks like she's ready to join in on the action, and he agrees that it's about time they get going. She's getting used to their new environment really fast, and although it makes life easy for him, it would be really weird if he told her everything he knows in an instant. For now, he needs to focus on his initial goal of arming her. He hands her the worn dagger that he stole from the goblin he killed earlier. She accepts it, but she's also worried about how he's going to fight if he doesn't have a weapon. Sehun assures her that he will get another one later, and she's more vulnerable than she is at the moment. His calm attitude and confidence are really surprising to her. He was always unusual in the way he acts, but right now he's like a completely different person. That aside, the dagger isn't very durable since it's incredibly rusty. It won't last too long for her, but it should be good enough for self-defense. Then he hands her a VIP brooch, which is an item that allows her to recover her wounds faster, and also gain points 20 faster than the base rate. He obviously can't tell her that he bought it from the DLC store, so he lies and says that it was a drop from the goblin he killed. She accepts his explanation very quickly since she already knows about how items work in video games in reality, though he had to spend 20,000 points buying 2 of those brooches for both of them. The DLC store sells much different items than the regular store, but they are way more pricey. Even with that, it's significantly worth it considering their effects. If a player dies in this game, it's the same as reality. They are gone forever. In that regard, spending 20,000 points to recover wounds faster is more than worth it. And since it also increases the speed that they acquire points, it's a great deal. With that done, they exit the safe zone and continue their journey. Video games are usually all about equipment. The better the tools you have, the stronger you get. and if they can get powerful tools, they have a higher chance of survival. The two stealthily walk through campus, and Sahan reminds her to stay calm and mainly focus on defense. Elsewhere, the GMs of multiple regions gather to monitor and talk about their players. One GM complains that the people in his area simply died off while praying to God. Meanwhile, everyone in another GMS area went nuts, and thanks to gun ownership, they ended up shooting every monster in sight. Arcadis, on the other hand, isn't interested in most of the players in his region. There's one in particular that interests him. A celestial slayer. The two students continue to make their way through the campus, trying their best not to get spotted by the monsters running wild through the area. Sahan has given a lot of items to Jisoo, with a certain plan in mind to take out the major threat to their lives. Once they're sure that Jisoo remembers the plan and has properly packed everything up, they move out. The two hide on the roof of a building as the monsters continue their rampage. They give each other a signal, and Jisoo takes off running towards the monsters. The plan is pretty simple. Once there is a large group of goblins, there will always be a goblin leader in charge. Jisoo asks him how he has this information, but he plays it off by reminding her that he's a video game addict. People like him will always know these sorts of things when they play video games all the time. Goblins are just like the animals in wildlife documentaries. When there's a herd, they usually have a leader. The leader is also most likely the boss of this quest, and until the boss is defeated, it'll be difficult to escape. Sahan's plan is to defeat the boss to make escaping the area much easier for them. Her goal will be to lead all the goblins out of the area to make it easier for him. First, she uses the perfume of temptation that Sahan gave her to gather all the low-level monsters towards them. The perfume of temptation is a potion that attracts weak monsters in the area. Once all the goblins have been lured to one area, then she will use a potion of invisibility which completely hides all traces of the user after consumption for 5 minutes. With that, the area will be clear of goblins and she will be safe from danger, allowing Sahan to take out the boss monster without worries. That pretty much makes her the bait, but she couldn't help asking him how he got all these potions. Regardless, the plan is in motion, and she has successfully managed to attract a good number of the goblins in her direction. It's time for her to use the stealth potion to get away from danger. Before she can do so though, she sees Zhang Yuan and another girl running away from a large group of goblins. He's calling for help, and although she should prioritize her safety and the plan first, she can't help her compassion for people. She also remembers that Sahan said that the reward will be great if there are a large number of survivors. Because of this, she jumps down and manages to kill all the goblins in a matter of seconds, saving Zhang Yuan and the girl. But she also noticed that her body was surprisingly light as she was fighting. Zhang Yuan doesn't give her time to think about it though, and his annoying yelling gets on her nerves. She starts to consider if she should have bothered saving him in the first place. After all, he should be thanking her, not being an annoyance. As she turns to glare at him, something takes control of her body. She starts to feel lightheaded and loses her breath, and no matter what she does, she can't seem to calm her body. Jisoo struggles to fight through the weird feeling overtaking her, so she can take the potion before it's too late, but the feelings are too strong. She ends up dropping the potion on the ground, and the only thoughts she can think of are stopping the goblins before they can hurt Sahan. The monsters gather around her, and she has a menacing aura surrounding her. But instead of looking scared and afraid for all the monsters surrounding them, she is eerily calm and even has a smile on her face. Elsewhere, Shan idly wonders if Jisoo is doing all right. Despite his worries for her though, he has a more dangerous threat to take care of. It's the hidden boss of the area, and Sahan takes a moment to greet it. After all, it's been 10 years since he last saw the hobgoblin that have the student body population of his campus. The monster clearly doesn't understand what our MC is saying and immediately goes in for the kill with a mighty punch. Sahan decides to join it in its wordless aggression and starts distributing points to his skills. He starts with agility, allowing him to easily dodge the strike and jump high above the hobgoblin's head. The monster looks around to see where its prey went, not realizing that Sahan is right above it with a devious smirk on his face. Then he lands hard on the monster's head and quickly delivers a punch to its eye before it can react. The hobgoblin screams in pain and clutches its eye as Sahan jumps away from it. Landing safely away from it, he remembers that quite a lot of people died from the boss monster's sword 10 years ago. But this time Hell makes sure that won't happen. Our MC grabs a large rock off the ground and applies 10 points to his strength. Then he hurls the rock at the monster, who's still freaking out from the hit to its eye. That causes the sword it was holding to fly up into the air. Sahan leaps up to grab it, then with one swift motion, uses it to finish up the monster with a large clean cut, slicing its head off. The system dings with a notification informing him that he has defeated the stage's hidden boss. He also receives a reward called the Hobgoblin's Girdle, as well as 500 points. The reward seems very worth it since it was hidden behind a boss battle. The Hobgoblin's Girdle is an item that increases his strength by 10 points and is not affected by the main quest's limit. That will definitely come in handy in the future. He will just have to focus on increasing his stats later on when he needs to. Once the gods find out about the hidden boss death, they will definitely come after him. So for now, he needs to hurry up and leave before an observer comes over to check out the scene. Now he just needs to focus on finding Jisoo and hope that she is alright. He leaves the area and searches around for her, but surprisingly, there's no trace of anything, not Jisoo or the goblins. After she used the stealth potion, the goblins should have returned to their original spot. But the place is completely empty. The stealth potion should have only lasted 5 minutes. But it's also possible that she didn't make it. Or maybe he finished the fight with the boss monster way too quickly. A loud cry from somewhere further ahead breaks him from his thoughts, and he notices that a lot of goblins are running away from something. It looks like they are scared of something up ahead. Sehun rushes towards where the goblins are running away from, and he notices the murky scent of blood is all over the place coming from the direction he is running towards. He rushes over to where she should be, determined not to let her die a second time because of him. But when he gets there, he sees Jisoo standing, while surrounded by piles of dead monsters. Just before he arrived, Jisoo had gone on a killing spree against all the monsters. At first, the goblins continued to charge at her even after she spent time slicing their heads off. But after a while, even the mindless monsters began to realize that they had to chance in this fight. All the while, as she cut down the countless goblins, her eyes were glowing with a menacing red light, almost as if she were possessed. When Sehun finally catches up to her, she drops to her knees, and the menacing glow in her eyes fades away. Goblins are usually pushovers, but our MC can barely believe that she took on so many on her own. She explains to him that he came across the two students running for their lives as she was luring in the monsters and decided to help them out. The two are unconscious on the ground, but it's more likely that they passed out from shock. They, thankfully, were not dead as Sehun initially suspected. Although Jisoo thinks that they must have fainted because of the goblins, it's more likely that it was Jisoo who made them faint. He can't figure out what's up with her, so he asks her to share her status window with him so he can directly look into her stats. Her numbers are better than average, but there's nothing really out of the ordinary about them. But there's one trait that immediately catches his eye in the status window. It looks like a red skill and represents a passive ability called the Celestial Slayer. It's an ultra-rare ability which activates without the player's interaction once they have learned it. He only saw it once in his first playthrough. A man who was called the Blood Demon that came from another world named Jin had the Celestial Slayer trait in his world. There exist mystical martial art techniques, which he used to take out fearsome monsters. When they first met, he was very memorable and an almighty fighting master from another dimension. The Celestial Slayer effect is a devastating passive, and it makes sense now why the goblins decided to run away in fear. However, the user also has a chance of losing themselves and falling into madness if the Celestial Slayer's powers aren't fully controlled. Jisoo isn't showing any signs of madness just yet, but he has to keep an eye on her in case it shows up in the future. For now, he has to explain to her what the trait is since it feels wrong to hide vital information from her. He decides to tell her strictly what she needs to know and summarizes it as an ability that makes her stronger depending on how much blood she has seen. She tests this by looking at her bloodstained dagger, and the effects show immediately. Her eyes start to change to a blood-red color and the bloodlust from earlier reappears. Sehun takes the dagger from her before she can go on another rampage and warns her that if she uses the skill too often, it can put her in danger. Even though it's a scary talent, starting out with an ability like that definitely has its perks. Based on the lack of wounds on her body despite the intense battle, he can tell that the Celestial Slayer's passive healing is also stacking with the brooch's effect, which is giving her an incredible recovery rate. Jisoo really is a special breed, and with all these amazing talents together, he decides to ask her to form a contract with him. She takes it the wrong way at first and even starts blushing for a moment, But he quickly clarifies that he just means that he wants to form a party with her. She at least knows what parties are from video games, and she is more than happy to form a party with him. Now that he has his first party ally, he buys the multiplayer package from the DLC shop and uses it to invite her to the party. As they set up their new connection, he notices that one of the benefits of forming a party with someone is the ability to share traits. If he does this right, he can even become stronger than he was in his previous life. He checks out the ability screen but notices that he doesn't have any abilities available for skill sharing. It looks like he also needs to have an ability to give out in order to be able to share skills. It looks like it's more of an exchange than just a simple transfer, and it would be best for both of them if he shares a skill for her to use. He remembers an ability he had in his first playthrough that would be perfect for her, but for now, he's going to have to leave skill sharing for later. It would be an inconvenience for him to have the Celestial Slayer ability immediately. Anyways, the observers eventually arrive, probably because the gods have caught wind that the hobgoblin was defeated. It's a good thing no one saw him defeat it, else it would have made things complicated. Now it's time for them to go and finish the quest. Jong-yoon eventually wakes up, and just like before, he's whining annoyingly and pointing accusatory fingers at Jisoo. She would rather have it this way than to have him staring at her and trying to hit on her. Si-hoon gets straight to the point and asks them what they are doing running around campus during such dangerous times. Jong-yoon tries to insult Si-hoon for asking such random questions, but a knife to his throat stops him from speaking too far out of line. It's Jisoo, and the look on her face tells him that if he doesn't behave, she won't hesitate to end him. Jong-yoon's attitude changes immediately with the knife to his throat, and he's a lot more comfortable answering Si-hoon's questions. It also looks like this intimidating personality is Jisoo's true personality. Jong-yoon explains that the reason he was out in the open is because he and the girl with him are supposed to be scouting the area. If one of them gets in trouble, the other is supposed to escape and inform the others. With detailed plans like these, that means that someone else more organized is giving the orders. There's no way Jong-yoon would have gone scouting on his own. Jong-yoon tries to argue, but the knife back at his throat makes him admit that he was picked because they pulled his name out of a draw. That means that someone is gathering people to fight against the goblins, and they are also able to lead a group of people who are in a state of panic. This person must have a sharp mind and good leadership skills to be able to do something like that. Considering that everyone else was wiped out in his first playthrough, the best choice here is to escape rather than confronting them. He tells Jong-yoon to take him to their leader, who is gathering the others once again. Jong-yoon tries to argue with Si-hoon, but another knife is directed in his direction, except this time the one holding the knife isn't Jisoo, but a goblin who rushes after him. Si-hoon easily grabs the monster by its arm and kills it immediately. Much to Jong-yoon's shock, a characteristic about goblins is that they tend to aim for and attack the weakest one first, so the fact that they came after him should tell Jong-yoon everything he needs to know. With this in mind, Si-hoon asks him again if he wants to lead the way to the leader or stay here, outside, alone as Jong-yoon leads them towards his group. Si-hoon gets to see the carnage and death that has swept across the campus. In his previous life, he was also busy trying to run, and the only thing that saved him was the safe zone he managed to stumble across. After a while of walking, Si-hoon asks where exactly Jong-yoon is taking them. He's leading them to the evacuated gym. Inside, there are many students and faculty who are still alive, although many of them are injured, most likely from the first attack. The leader rescued and evacuated the others while being as confused as everyone else. Whoever pulled this off is someone calm and trustworthy enough who has a good reputation as well. There's very few people on campus who can think and act like that, but one person immediately comes to mind. Si-hoon correctly guesses that it's the student council president who's in charge and sent Jong-yoon out on that scouting mission. The president is Hyunjin-yoon. He's smart, good-looking, and has proven to be a leader. The gods will definitely focus their attention on him for sure, and with the number of observers around him, it's obvious they already have. He'll be considered a rare avatar by them, and he most likely died to a hobgoblin in his previous life. The fact that he hasn't left, though, means that he doesn't know that staying in the school means certain death. In other words, he's not a god's avatar yet, but from the number of observers following him, he must have gotten a ton of requests by now. He seems suspicious of them for now and doesn't know who exactly to trust. Hyunjin notices Jong-yoon and his new group and rushes over to them. He also immediately recognizes Jisoo and tries to greet her, but Si-hoon cuts him off for now. They need to escape the campus immediately. Unlike Jisoo, Hyunjin doesn't recognize Si-hoon and doesn't immediately trust his warning. Si-hoon reveals that the leader of the monsters is dead, and they all should have received a system notification that the hobgoblin has been defeated. Because of this, all the surrounding goblins are in a daze now that their leader has suddenly disappeared. That makes this the perfect time to escape the area, since the quest was to escape, not to survive. That's only the surface level gist of it, but he can't reveal any more with all the observers watching them. To further prove his point, he reminds them of the countdown in their quest window, which is currently at 37 hours. If they don't leave before the time limit, there will be grave consequences. From their discussion, he can tell that Hyunjin only knows as much as a beginner about the game. That means that the president hasn't become an avatar yet. If he can persuade the guy to lead everyone out of there, then it would be better for him. With the hobgoblin gone, people have started to die less, which means that the gods will soon start getting bored. Unexpected events might start to occur, and the gods will begin to lose interest once the situation becomes too comfortable for the players. Their reactions are the top priority in this ridiculous game, and since they have realized that the hobgoblin is dead, that means that there is nothing more to entertain them. For now, Hyunjin decides that they need to take some sort of action. Since they can't contact anyone from outside, it's possible to learn some things from the internet. But so far, they haven't been able to call for help or communicate with anyone with his quick decision-making skills. It's strange that someone as competent as Hyunjin died so early in his first playthrough. There was no escape plan or counterattack made in the gym during his first run, which means everything is completely different now. Last time, the hobgoblin killed them all after they tried to defend themselves, but that was it. So this entire time, he thought the leader was indecisive and timid, but that's clearly not the case. Another voice joins in on their conversation while Si-hoon is still thinking about what to do. He tells them that the best thing they can do is wait for rescue. Si-hoon recognizes the person that's joining in on their conversation very well. His name is Dong-hun Park, and it's someone that is impossible to forget. In his past life, Dong-hun was someone that screwed him over countless times. He seems to be trying to convince Hyunjin not to escape and instead to sit around and wait. But the leader isn't convinced anymore. There's no reason for them to sit around and wait. Dong-hun doesn't back down and tells the leader that he's gambling with people's lives right now. That causes the leader to pause for a moment and rethink things. Now that Dong-hun is here, it's easy to guess what happened in the first playthrough. This guy already knows the rules of the game and how to play it. Dong-hun turns and introduces himself as the vice president of the student council to Si-hoon. He brings up valid points like the fact that half of everyone there is injured, and because of that, it wouldn't be a good idea to just run out into the open. He wrongly assumes that Si-hoon has probably gotten a bit fearless after getting a few lucky kills with the monsters. Because of that, he repeats that the best thing they can do is sit tight and wait for the police to come and intervene. That's a valid opinion for anyone to have, and if it were a normal person making these assumptions, Si-hoon would almost agree with them, but he already knows the kind of person Dong-hun. There's no way he would think about the good of everyone else above the good of himself. In the first playthrough, he was a psychopath who enjoyed joining different groups and enjoyed watching them crumble from the inside. He doesn't care about the deaths of others as long as things end well for him. A monster like that would never think of the majority. This time, though, Si-hoon is determined not to let him get his way like he did in his previous life. Jisoo, on the other hand, who has been mostly quiet for a while, takes offense to the fact that Dong-hun thinks they only got a few lucky kills. Dong-hun doesn't believe that they've killed any of them, and Jisoo offers to take him outside and show him exactly how she did it. Dong-hun doesn't immediately respond, so she shows him further proof on her phone. It'd be dumb to sit back and wait for rescue just because they are scared. The military and the police are unavailable, and they have no idea when help will arrive. Dong-hun still tries to argue that the others most likely won't accept a decision to just get up and leave, but then Si-hoon suggests that they just leave the few who argue behind. They don't need to convince everyone in the first place. If they choose to ignore the warnings and stay behind, then that's their problem. But if Dong-hun knows the truth about the situation, then there's no way he would decide to stay behind. His goal is most likely to get everyone in the auditorium killed for the extra reward from his kill count. That's the exact opposite of Si-hoon's plan, which is to gain further rewards by saving everyone else. If he remained behind while everyone else escaped, he'd gain a lot of suspicions as the only survivor, which would outweigh the benefits of getting a few people killed. After listening to all their points, Hyunjin decides to follow Si-hoon's decision and try to escape the campus. Dong-hun has no choice but to follow them as well. That confirms that he was most likely just pretending, while also being fully aware of how the game system works. It's likely that Donghun Park has already been chosen as a god's avatar. Hyunjin starts trying to convince people to escape with him. Thanks to information from the scout team and Sihoon, even though there are still a lot of monsters outside, they are unable to think properly since their leader has been killed. Some people try to oppose the idea loudly, and one of the teachers even threatens Hyunjin with a failing grade if he acts irresponsibly. Like grades and semester scores even matter right now. It's a wonder that someone like that even ended up as a professor while being so slow. Eventually, everyone is prepared with makeshift weapons, and they set up to try and escape the campus. Jisoo asks Sihoon if they really have to leave like this, but he's sure that they will be fine as long as nothing special happens. She doesn't immediately understand what he means by something special, but the goblins at least won't be a problem without their leader. The problem is Donghun, who is a god's avatar. Unfortunately, there are too many eyes watching them. Else he would have tried to kill him immediately as they make their way through the campus. Goblins start to gang around them, but Hyunjin advises them to all stick together. They won't attack anyone unless they are separated from the group. Thanks to his leadership skills, the group is progressing well towards the main entrance. Their worries aren't done, however. Even though they are at the exit, a system notification pops up informing them that the difficulty of the quest has been raised from E rank to D rank, and sentinels will start appearing on stage. In an instant, the ground starts to shake as if there's an earthquake. Then suddenly, a giant minotaur appears right in front of the students. It doesn't move at first, but its overwhelming presence is enough to scare the people who were so happy just a moment ago. The GM released a monster that you normally wouldn't see until the 15th quest into a crowd filled with noobs. Hidden bosses like the hobgoblin can be managed in one way or another, but they've spawned a monster that regular players could never hope to defeat even if they team up. Sentinels are unwinnable scenarios often found in single-player games. The fact that they've released one here means that they definitely want more people killed. However, since this is only the first quest, there must be a limit to the Sentinel's powers. Despite the fact that it's a C-class monster, the stats of the Sentinel don't go past F-rank limits. The other students aren't as level-headed, and they start to wonder what they should do against a monster like that. Dongguan prepares to tell them all to run, but Jisoo slaps her hand over his mouth before he can give the order. If they all start running away, the monster would have started charging at them immediately. Unfortunately for them, he's not the only one with the idea, and another student takes the initiative by sprinting away and calling for the others to do the same. A few of the students run, but some of them realize that they can barely move. It looks like the monster's roar has some sort of fear effect. That's better since it stops some people from running away aimlessly, but the few that do manage to run away can't be saved anymore. In a matter of seconds, the Minotaur catches up to them and smashes them away easily. Even the professor from earlier, who was more focused on semester scores, is not left behind, and he immediately gets blown to pieces by the monster's massive fist. The Minotaur is huge, and well over 5 meters. It also has the ability to blow people into pieces without using any weapons. A beast like that is something that they can't even hope to run away from, and it's clear that running isn't even the right choice. As Hyunjin tries to figure out what to do, Sihoon steps up to take charge. Someone is going to have to act as a distraction while everyone else escapes. He offers himself as bait so that they can run away. Although Hyunjin initially tells him that there is no need for him to do something so crazy, it's obvious that no one else would volunteer to do it anyways, and they can't just wait for the thing to annihilate them. It's surprising that even in a situation like this, Sihoon shows no sign of nervousness. He's reacting to the situation optimally and making rational decisions. Compared to Hyungyun's level-headedness, Sihoon is on a whole other level. Jisoo continues to hold Donghun's mouth, and she watches as Sihoon calmly walks towards the Minotaur. She's concerned for a moment, but he waves his hand dismissively towards her, showing that he has a plan. She trusts him and decides to release the annoying vice president from his powerless squirming. Donghun takes a moment to regain his composure and rub his sore face. He originally wanted to take all the rewards, but now that things have turned out like this, there's not much he can do. They warned him about the Minotaur before, so he will have to back off. There will be many more quests for him to do later on anyways. Sihoon gets ready to head into the fight and even grabs a red cloth to use and lure the beast away. Hyunjin doesn't even know how much time he can buy by himself, but at this point, they have no other choice. He takes a moment to bow towards Sihoon and thank him for his sacrifice. which makes our MC nervous from the sudden attention. Sehun then leaps onto higher ground and prepares to take all the Minotaur's attention by waving the cloth around once it's fully focused on him. He yells for the others to run towards the main entrance with Hyunjin screaming commands at them. They all obey and successfully reach the exit without any problems. He even gains an ability called Commanding Shout, which helps him pass along orders. Sehun meanwhile is confidently leading the Minotaur around, dodging its massive attacks and causing it to slam itself into the wall and the ground. Eventually, everyone manages to make it out of the campus, and they successfully complete the quest in time. They all take a moment to check each other, and although some people are in rough shape, they all made it out alive and well now that the people are taken care of. Hyunjin turns around to go and help Sehun. But there's a barrier stopping him from going back to the previous stage since he can't head in directly. He yells for Sehun to get out of there while he still can. He notices them calling for him and turns to answer. But the Minotaur takes the opportunity to land a solid hit, sending him flying into a wall. Then the beast launches itself immediately, slamming itself into Sehun with massive power. The others stare in shock at what just happened, and it's safe to assume that our MC is dead. As they watch on, the barrier starts to close, cutting off their view of the fight. Hyunjin apologizes to Jisoo, who also watched everything happen, but she just watches the fight with a blank expression on her face. Despite their worries though, Sehun is still alive and sitting under all the collapsed debris, waiting for them to leave. He wasn't a good guy in his previous life, and it'd be more accurate to say that he was incredibly selfish. That's why he felt weird when Hyunjin thanked him so passionately. He was weak, and there were plenty of players who were way more talented than him. Back then, he just wanted to stay alive, and to achieve that, he had to be cold and selfish. But now that he has returned to the beginning with a new perspective on life, he wants to choose a different path. Maybe this time he can try being a hero now that he's sure that all the observers have left, and there's no one left to monitor him. He taunts the Minotaur into attacking one more time. The Minotaur seems surprised that he survived the fatal hit, but just before he got blasted away by the massive punch, he increased his health stats to the max for his current level to survive it. Since he took that hit directly, Sahan is certain now that his original theory was correct. The Minotaur starts are maxed out up till the F rank level of 100 points. Sentinels are usually set to be impossible to defeat by an ordinary player. In his previous life, he avoided going up against one at all costs, and when he did have to fight one, he made sure to prioritize his survival by any means necessary. He didn't care about the lives of others as long as it meant that he could live on. However, he doesn't want it to be that way this time. He prepares himself as the Minotaur charges at him with outstanding speed, tearing up the ground around it as it runs towards him. Just before it hits though, Sahan spends some more points to upgrade his strength to the max level as well, but thanks to the item he got before, he can even go beyond that. As he's literally holding the bull by the horns, he equips the Hobgoblin's girdle, which increases his strength by 10 points above the main quest limit. Since he's above the limit of the main quest, that also means that he's currently stronger than the Minotaur. It immediately shows as he breaks off the beast's horn, causing it to rush back in pain. Then our MC takes advantage of the opportunity by leaping into the air and kicking the Minotaur in the face, sending it flying. In his past life, he was a selfish player who played alone and an ordinary guy who barely had any special traits to speak of. The things he's pulling off right now would have been impossible for him in his past life, but right now he wants to be a hero. With the Minotaur defeated, he officially clears the main quest and achieves the Platinum tier. That's a bit underwhelming since he helped everyone escape and even volunteered as bait. Then he defeated the hidden boss and the Sentinel all by himself. Platinum is the highest rank a player can get. But it's still disappointing that this is all he can achieve. There's nothing he can do to change it though, and now all he can do is wait for the rewards. He would ideally like a weapon or some sort of useful ability. Anything other than consumables or experience points would be great for him. The barrier opens for him as he goes to leave, and he surprisingly finds Jisoo waiting outside for him. He thought she would have followed the others, but she waited for him to come out. Perhaps she was worried about him. She actually knew he was fine despite everyone else thinking he was dead. Ever since they formed a party together, she has been able to check the state of other party members from her stats window. She could see that he was still fine even after he got hit by the Minotaur, so she figured that he was just acting like he was defeated. He seems to prefer not being noticed, so she didn't want to break his act. She asks him what rank he achieved, and while he received Platinum, she got Gold, which is the second highest ranking. The third is silver and the lowest is bronze. Gold rank is usually considered one of the highest tiers and platinum is on a whole different level. Now that all the competitors are done with the quest, the rewards for the survivors get distributed. He gets the achievement self-sacrifice as well as bonus points for defeating the first sentinel and a hidden boss that gives him adaptive orichalcum as a reward, as well as 2 new upgradable abilities. The first is Final Hour and the second ability is Regeneration. The abilities must be bonuses for hunting monsters and being the world's first to defeat a sentinel. Upgradable abilities have a lot of late-game potential since they can become more powerful over time, but it's a shame that he didn't get an S-tier ability like Jice's Celestial Slayer. He doesn't have time to think about it, because the message about the second quest has already arrived. It requires them to journey towards the Lomii World Tower and defeat the boss monster. The difficulty level of this quest is C, and it has a time limit of 2 weeks. It's the same quest as the one from his previous playthrough, which makes it easier to predict. For now, players from the same stage will most likely share the same quest for a certain period of time. It should be the same for Jisoo and Dongguan's group. Everyone else also headed to the Lomii World Tower, but Jisoo didn't go with them since she planned to wait for him. She also didn't like being around Dongguan since he has a creepy vibe around him. It's possible that she has already figured out that he has ulterior motives. Considering that she has really great intuition and an ability as powerful as the Celestial Slayer, it's possible that she could have become a renowned player if she didn't die so early in her previous life. She might have been a famous hero or a villain. In any case, she would have stood out quite a bit, but there surprisingly aren't any observers watching her. He asks her if she has become a chosen avatar yet, and she says she hasn't. That's odd since gods would have explained the benefits of becoming an avatar in the requests they sent. Jisoo explains that she doesn't want to serve someone she can't even see. It sounds way too creepy for her liking. Jisoo seems to have a really cool head, and it's hard to tell if the Celestial Slayer's influence has taken over since she's not showing any signs of madness. Even the blood demon from his last life had a hard time getting rid of the madness of the Celestial Slayer despite her refusal though. She received up to 12 avatar requests, which just shows that she's worth the effort. But she declined all of them despite that. She's part of his party now, and since they are now bound together, he has to train her so she doesn't become a god's avatar. The first ability she will learn is a specialized killing technique that only Celestial Slayer users can master. The Crimson Azura. The Crimson Azura is an ability that Saihin never managed to master in his previous life because he wasn't a Celestial Slayer. He found out about the mystical martial arts from an encounter with the Blood Demon. Martial arts are not upgradable by nature, so they are usually difficult to obtain or train, and that's why he didn't try to get them in his previous life. But unlike him, Jisoo managed to surpass his wildest expectations. With his help, Jisoo has managed to master the incredible martial art immediately. And although it's good for him in the long run, the speed at which she learns new things is completely unbalanced. A few hours earlier, they were roaming through the now ruined streets of their city. Saihin wanted to practice the new abilities he got from the first quest, and the first is Final Hour. It's an ability that boosts attack power and survivability, and since it's an upgradable ability, it will only become more powerful going forward. The next is the Regeneration ability, which is a passive skill unlike Final Hour. That ability, plus the effects of the VIP and the Celestial Slayer, mean that almost all wounds will be taken care of immediately. Both Jisoo and Saihin equipped the brooch, and they had managed to clear out a majority of the area while also stacking up an insane amount of points. That was when Saihin decided to take her to a private area to share abilities. The two found an abandoned cafe and sat down to share abilities through their status windows. Saihin shared his regeneration ability while Jisoo shared the Celestial Slayer. Although Final Hour for her wouldn't be so bad, regeneration would be way more effective for her. Unfortunately, since they are just sharing abilities, the effectiveness of their shared abilities is reduced to 30. The effectiveness can be reduced to a maximum of 80 depending on their friendship level. A shared ability doesn't carry over the penalties of that ability either. While that means that he won't get the full buff of the Celestial Slayer, he also won't get the madness penalty from it either. Jisoo is not too impressed about being given a simple regeneration ability. She would have preferred something more offensive. Saihin disagrees though and believes that regeneration is great for offense, since having good survivability means that she can focus more on fighting than worrying about getting injured. Dodging won't be crucial since she can now regenerate injuries fast enough, and she can spend the time that she would have spent dodging to attack instead. Hearing that definitely makes her rethink her thoughts on the regeneration ability, and she starts to appreciate it more now. The next thing they have to figure out is where to go next. The second quest has a generous time limit, so he wants to take the free time to learn new abilities and teach her some as well. Jisoo is thankful, but also confused by Saehin's sudden generosity. The Saehin she knew was always more self-serving and only cared about himself, but even with her concerns, she can't deny that learning new abilities is always a good thing. That's how he ended up teaching her the Crimson Azura, and she mastered it scarily quickly. While she's busy training with it, Saehin decides to take another peek into the gods' forums. It's a lot more active than last time, and there's one name in particular that catches his eye as soon as he opens up the chat room. It's a god named An Honest Life. And this particular god is someone he knew well from his previous playthrough. This god is also Dongguan Park's god, which is fitting since they are both insufferable to our MC. From what Saehin can see, it looks like Hyung Yoon has been keeping a close eye on Dongguan, and it looks like because of that, he won't be rewarded as much as his first playthrough. Other than that, the rest of the chat seems to be filled with idle small talk. Someone named Young Jester complains about how their avatar is a loser who's wasting their potential by robbing a bank. Saehin plays dumb and manages to convince Young Jester to allow him to take a view through her observer. She invites him over, and he's physically teleported there to meet him. Thankfully, his appearance is still anonymous since he set his profile to private in this weird room. He meets Young Jester and she invites him over to come and watch through her observer. On the screen, a young man who looks to be a police officer bends down to talk to a girl hiding in a dangerous place. Although he's trying to be gentle with her, she screams and tries to run away from him. This is exactly what Saehin wanted to see, and one of the people on screen is the person that he needed for Lomiai Tower and the key to defeating the monster living there. Saehin returns to the real world to meet Jisoo, and the two of them start heading towards where he saw through Young Jester's observer. It's in the opposite direction from Lomiai Tower, and thankfully, there are no observers around the area. That also means that there are fewer survivors around the area. On the way, Jisoo realizes that the streets are a lot messier than she expected. She thinks that destruction must have been caused by the monsters, but the truth is that it was mostly caused by humans. It was a similar sight for Saehin in his first life, but the truth is monsters don't have a reason to lay their hands on human structures. Because the laws are useless and the police and the military are nowhere in sight, people are taking the opportunity to loot and ravage everything they can. Although even with everything that's going on with the gods game, it seems like civilization hasn't fully collapsed just yet. Surprisingly, the news is still on and it's reporting on the strange and bizarre things happening around the world. Even with that though, there's no way that the gods or the system will leave human authorities alone. As they're talking, a goblin tries to sneak up on Jisoo from behind. She reacts fast enough to stop it before it can attack her, but because of her dull blade, she got some blood on herself. Thanks to that, she wants a new weapon that should be able to deal additional damage. Even though she managed to kill the goblin with one hit, she still wants something better. The Celestial Slayer trait is just a 30 increase for Saehin, while it's a 100 increase for Jisoo. That means that she must be extremely strong even though they have only just ended the first stage. Since she's interested in getting a new weapon, Saehin offers to help her find a new one after they catch up with the person he's looking for. They eventually reach the place that he wanted to go, and it's a bank. Of course, they are not here for the money since money is practically worthless in their world now and there is nothing to buy with it. Instead, there's someone in this place that they really need for the second stage. Inside the bank, there's absolute chaos as people try to attack and steal from the vaults. The officer that Saehin saw in the Young Jester's observer tries his best to protect the innocent people while taking on the robbers directly as the civilians flee to safety. The officer leaps towards an unsuspecting robber who tries to counterattack with a knife. The blade is easily slapped out of the robber's hand before he's spent flying by a powerful bash from the cop's knee. Another one tries to attack from behind, but a straight punch to his gut sends him flying as well. With that, all the robbers have been successfully taken out, and it wasn't even much of a problem for him despite the fact that some of them were players as well. Outside, Saehin and Jisoo watch the whole thing, and our MC confirms that the officer is the one they are looking for. He managed to overwhelm the robbers, so it's possible that he could be using a special item. However, it's far more likely that the officer is incredibly strong because he is another chosen avatar. The man finally notices Saehin and Jisoo watching him from afar, and he calls them over to talk. He warns them to get as far away from the bank as they can if they don't have business there since it's very dangerous. Saehin gets straight to the point though and tells the officer that he doesn't have business with the bank, but he actually has business with him, Mina Lee. The officer is shocked that he knows their name and flinches back in surprise. He tries to argue, saying his name is actually Kyungcheol Nam, but Saihin isn't fooled, and neither is Jisoo. She grabs his arm and notices that his heart rate has quickened, and he's clearly flustered. That's enough to convince her that he's lying about his name, and what Saihin said surprised him. Although it's more surprising that Jisoo's senses are sharp enough to pick up these subtle details. The officer drops his pretenses and asks who they are, but Saihin only reveals that they are people who are aware of his true identity. He gets so freaked out that his speech pattern changes, and at this point, the cop has no way of hiding their identity anymore. As they're talking, an observer comes over to watch them, and it seems like it belongs to young Jester. It looks strange, however, and it's different from other observers that he has seen so far. Now that the secret is out of the bag, the officer drops the fake identity and reveals their secret ability. After turning back, it's revealed that Mina Lee is not a middle-aged cop, but actually a teenage girl. She went through a lot of trouble to act like a helpless little kid. Then she knocked the real cop unconscious before taking his clothes and outfit. It was supposed to be the perfect plan, but it looks like Saihin spoiled it all for her. She rushes them to get to the point of why they are looking for her, since she's a busy person, but the only thing she's busy with is robbing a bank. Her true ability is the power to transform into another person or object. He obviously can't tell them how he knows this, but thankfully Jisoo doesn't ask. The more obvious question is how he knows that she was robbing a bank. After all, from what they saw, it looked like she was going around trying to help people in need. She even disguised herself as a cop so people would trust her. On the outside, it looked like she had righteous intentions, but the truth is that she brought the robbers there in the first place. Since everyone evacuated to the bank because of the monsters, she couldn't rob the place like she wanted. Instead, she manipulated the robbers into coming to the bank. If the robbers raid the place a few times, people would stop coming there because it's no longer safe. Once the place was empty and she got rid of a few pesky robbers, she could loot all the money for herself. In his past life, Mina and Dongguan were the best manipulators that he knew, and he has seen their tricks way too many times to not instantly recognize it. Now that the plan has been foiled, Mina accepts her fate and asks if they are going to report her to the police, but any form of authority is practically gone at this point. And besides, she would be able to escape easily from jail anyways. For now, he wants her to accompany them for a while until they can complete their second quest. Mina is surprised that they are still on their second quest since she has already completed hers. Her attitude completely changes towards them now that she perceives them as weaker than her, and it looks like this is her real attitude. There's no benefit to Si-hoon if she looks down on him, so he decides to use some intimidation tactics to keep her in line. First, he flicks her on the forehead with enough power to send her flying backwards. That is enough to put a little bit of fear into her at first. Since his tarts are currently above F rank, he is easily the strongest person in the world right now. Mina doesn't take the hit laying down and tries to go on the offensive, launching an attack back towards Si-hoon, but in an instant Jisoo is by his side and she blocks the punch easily. Just like Si-hoon, she also has monstrous levels of strength and easily holds the younger girl down. To escape, she tries to transform into something, but Jisoo squeezes her wrist, breaking her concentration and causing her to stop her transformation. With Jisoo's intervention, Mina is a lot less willing to try and run away, and thanks to the intimidation, she actually agrees to join their group. They leave the bank together towards their next location, with young Jester's observer following along with them. Now that she has seen how powerful they are, Mina's tone changes to something way too formal and polite, so Si-hoon tells her to just speak normally. Then she finds out that they aren't avatars and wonders how the two of them can be so strong. She's missing the fact that being an avatar doesn't always mean that you're stronger than a player. What's more important is equipment. Good stats aren't everything, and it's good items that really backs up a person's power. Although everything's a mess, so it's hard to find a proper store for equipment, but Si-hoon already has a solution for that. He leads the two girls to a safe zone, and Mina is suspicious of how he knew this place was a safe zone in the first place. It's because there is only evidence of theft, but no sign of any monsters. Monsters wouldn't take human food, so it's safe to say that no monsters can enter here. Now that they're in a safe zone, Si-hoon introduces them to a game mechanic that even a god's avatar wouldn't know about yet. It's a chosen store. It's obvious from Mina's surprise that she didn't know it existed. The young jester could have told her, since as a god, she should know how important items are. But she's notorious for being a sadist, so it's likely that she wouldn't allow an easy path even for her own avatar. Si-hoon then lies and tells them that he only discovered it by accident anyway, so there's no reason for her to be upset. Next up, now that they have found the place, it's time for them to pick the most useful items they can find out of a shop full of equipment. Most of the items are common weapons and items, so it's not like there's anything too overpowered here. There are also no potions either, so people are less likely to survive. This is most likely the doing of the game masters who want to make the game as hard as possible for the players. Eventually though, players will learn how to craft their own weapons, so it doesn't even matter. Right now though, it's currently impossible to acquire better equipment, so he decides to be thankful for this basic loot. He picks out a decent set of armor and some equipment for himself, then buys some more armor for Jisoo. He gives her a chest strap that is supposed to protect her heart if she wraps it around her body. Since she doesn't have any points to spend for herself, he has decided to buy her things to increase her stats. Next up, it's time for her to pick her weapon, and there are 4 types of weapons to pick from: swords, spears, bows, and blunt weapons. After looking through the list of options, she decides to buy a mace, which is a blunt weapon. The Crimson Azura goes well with any weapon, so it doesn't matter what she picks. And a mace is also easier to use for a beginner than a sword or a spear. Besides Sehun, Mina slyly watches the two of them pick out weapons and doesn't say a word. She's hoping that our MC would get her some gear as well. But he has no intention of doing so after all. She declined his offer of points earlier because she was looking down on him. She can't buy equipment for herself even if she wanted to. Each item is worth 200 points, which is way more than she's able to afford. Once they'd equipped the appropriate equipment, the 3 of them head out towards the location of the second quest, and they kill monsters along the way. One of Sehun's weapons is a sword that he has enhanced with the orichalcum that he received as a premium reward from his first quest. The special ore is a versatile item that can be used as a solid or liquid to coat a piece of equipment. When the coating is removed, it will return to its original form. It can also change form, and it's reusable as well, which means his weapons can become much more powerful than they originally were. Orichalcum is the strongest metal, and even though it increases the strength of the sword, the weight of it doesn't change. They continue walking, and they eventually reach the Lomii Tower where the second quest is supposed to hold. The place looks surprisingly normal, and if not for the system, there'd be no sign of a quest happening here. Their quest is to defeat the second stage boss, which is different from what Mina had to do. Her quest was a battle royale, which is where a bunch of people are forced to fight to the death until one person remains. In comparison, the simple escape quest they had to do was relatively peaceful. But even that would have ended in annihilation without Sehun's intervention in front of the tower. There seems to be 2 people guarding the entrance of the tower. The 3 hide behind a wall and watch the 2 as they patrol the area. It looks like they are on lookout. Even though there are no monsters in the area, it's likely that they are patrolling for people instead, and they are trying to stop outsiders from getting in. If their quest is a competitive one like Mina's Battle Royale, this amount of caution makes sense. Now that they've reached the tower, it's time for Mina to make herself useful. They want her to use her transformation ability to try and gather information and find out what their exact plans are. Mina tries to argue, but it's obvious that saying no is not an option here. Mina sneaks away from the 2 of them and towards an unguarded wall. Then she waits until they are not paying attention to each other. Then she grabs one of them and knocks him out before he can react. With the guy taken out, she uses her transformation ability to change into the guy right as the other guard notices that his partner is missing. Mina comes out of her hiding place with her hands up, trying not to arouse too much suspicion, but she's way too stiff and awkward. Despite that though, she's still able to make her way into the building without problems. Inside the tower, other players climb the stairs towards the top of the tower. They've been climbing it for a while now. Heading towards the boss room, the players open the door and are met with a colossal monster that's definitely way too big for them to take out at their current level. The monster wakes up as soon as the players enter the room, and it immediately goes on the offensive. The players realize that they are not going to be able to survive a battle with this thing. They try to run off and escape, but the monster starts to take them out one by one, making sure that not a single one of them can escape. One by one, each player starts to fall, and not a single one is able to escape the massive jaws of the boss. The last remaining 5 players are just barely able to make it to the exit, but before they can open the door and escape, the monster surrounds them with its body, blocking their only path of escape. Then in a matter of seconds, the last few are killed, ending the quick boss encounter with an overwhelming defeat. Elsewhere, Mina has managed to gather all the information she needed after following the guard. The boss stage is at the top of the building, and while the boss is terrifying, the real issue is the quest requirements. Only the players who started in the same location can enter the boss room together. Because of that, there are two teams trying to defeat the boss, and only one team can complete the quest. There's also a penalty for failing the quest, so no side wants to give up the opportunity. Unfortunately, since one team came to the site earlier, the team that arrived late ended up occupying the subway. One of the people guarding the subway entrance is Jong-yoon Lee, and he's surprised that Si-hoon is somehow still alive. He leads them through the subway towards the rest of their group. Jong-yoon also seems weirdly humble, but it's normal after seeing how Si-hoon fought that sentinel. For now, Si-hoon wants to meet the student council president so that they can discuss things. They enter the base, and the crowd immediately starts to murmur about Si-hoon, recognizing him as the one who fought the Minotaur. There's also a lot of observers in the area because of the crowd, and from the looks of it, even they are interested in Si-hoon. Mina can barely believe that he actually took out a sentinel all by himself, and at first she actually doesn't believe it, but from his reaction, she realizes that he's actually serious. As they are talking, Jong-yoon runs up to them and wraps Si-hoon in a brotherly hug. After a brief chat, they discuss the situation in Lomiai Tower, and the reason that they are holed up in the subway is because they arrived late to the tower after the first quest. That matches what Mina reported, and also means that they need to beat the boss before the ones above them are able to, and they also need to defeat other players along the way. Right now though, they are no match for the other team, and even they couldn't defeat the boss, so there's very little hope. But Si-hoon has an idea that will drag the other team down from the top. There's only one stage boss, and with two teams trying to defeat it, the losing team will be penalized, and the punishment for failing a quest is death. So to make sure that they are chasing after the right target, Si-hoon asks if the other team knows about the stage boss, and if they are the ones who said that it's at the top of the tower. Jong-yoon confirms that the other team really is the one that discovered the boss first and reported it at the top of the tower. Now that he has this information, Si-hoon suggests that they let the other team have it. If the other team is at the top of the tower, then they can go ahead and defeat it if they can. That doesn't mean that Si-hoon wants him and his teammates to accept death though. The truth is that the monster at the rooftop might not actually be the boss at all. The monster is definitely way too powerful to be a regular mob monster. The other team showed Jong-yoon the video earlier, and it was definitely a horrific beast. What's more, as soon as they entered Lomi Tower, they got a notification that mentioned the boss stage. Then they searched through every floor and found no trace of any other monster, much less another boss. But despite searching through every part of the tower, they failed to search the underground level as well. One big difference between a boss monster and a regular monster is that a boss will always build its own pack and keep them around itself. Elsewhere, a player from the other team runs to inform their chief of something important. Jong-yoon and his team have come to negotiate with them, and this time, they brought along Si-hoon and his party. Earlier, it was decided that Hyunjun, Si-hoon, and a few trusted people would head out to try and talk directly with the other team. One of the people following them is Dongguan, which is suspicious since he didn't trust Si-hoon's decisions before. It's obvious from how quickly he changes sides to favor himself that Dongguan has a sharp mind despite his terrible personality. That makes Si-hoon consider using him in the future to further his own goals. But before the plan gets agreed on, Hyunjun raises his concerns of if it's really alright to try and talk to these people. After all, most of them have criminal backgrounds, and their team has women and children. In Si-hoon's first playthrough, there were many guilds in Korea, and one of them stood out in particular for their strength. That is the infamous guild formed by a band of criminals who escaped from prison as soon as the world changed. The group killed people like insects, and didn't hesitate to cross any line as long as it benefited them. They were known as the Sins. The man who's famous for creating the guild is the top dog, Ju-won Kim, and that man is currently staring down at Si-hoon and his group as they come to make a deal. Hyunjun starts the negotiations, and tells them that he has come to make a suggestion to their group. It was discussed earlier that cooperation between the two teams would not be an option, but Hyunjun isn't there to ask for cooperation. He instead wants to suggest that the criminal group go ahead and defeat the boss on the rooftop with their consent. Ju-won doesn't need consent, and he was going to take on the boss regardless, so Hyunjun doesn't have any authority in their negotiation. For him to just allow them to take on the boss without opposition, that's as good as him running away. And preparing to die, Hyunjun tells them that they have no chance fighting against the criminal group or the boss, so they thought it would be better to wait for them to defeat the boss, then they would hope that another boss spawns for them to take out. That's a lie, obviously, and it's shocking that the student council president can lie so with such an honest expression. Juwon is rightfully suspicious and warns them that if they are lying, then they will all die. But Hyunjin continues to lie, despite the unpleasant aura that Juwon releases to intimidate them. Seon can recognize the aura of an avatar when he sees it. Juwon must be the avatar of one of the highest gods. Hades. Juwon asks the rest of his team what they think about Hyunjin, and they are all in favor, since if the college students try to come against them, they'll just get murdered anyway. Since there's no opposition, Juwon accepts their suggestion, but on one condition: they want someone to stay with them as collateral for the criminals. At first, Hyunjin tries to offer himself up, but Donghun steps up instead. Since Hyunjin is the class leader, he shouldn't have to stay there when the rest of his team needs him. Juwon, on the other hand, isn't satisfied, and he wants the entire team to stay locked up. Then he sets his sights on Jisoo in the back, and he wants her to stay specifically. Then, without provocation, he rushes in to try and attack her, but his blade is parried easily by Seon. The two face off for a moment, and Juwon can barely believe that someone dares to try and face off against him. Juwon must have been wary of Jisoo, even though he doesn't know that she's a celestial slayer. It's obvious that he felt something from her presence alone. Hyunjin tries to ask why Juwon would try and attack one of his teammates, but he's completely ignored instead. He walks straight up to Seon, and the two face off directly against each other. The other criminals start yelling in hopes of intimidating the group, but Seon doesn't back down and advises Juwon to accept their offer if the criminals don't want to go up against them. Juwon can tell that Seon isn't an ordinary guy, and he tells his group to quiet down for a while. His main issue isn't Juwon though, and he feels a chill going up his spine thanks to the aura of the woman next to him. Jisoo's deadly glare causes the criminal boss to freeze up in fear, and he can only describe her power as something similar to a man eating flour. The other criminals continue to encourage the man to fight, but Juwon is completely paralyzed by fear, and he can barely control his breathing while facing Jisoo. Seon places a hand on her shoulder to stop her from releasing the paralyzing aura, and she finally calms down. She was just so angry from the way that Juwon was talking to our MC that she couldn't control herself. It was a relatively small aura for a celestial slayer, but it was still enough to completely petrify the criminal boss. No matter how much of a psycho Juwon is, there's no way he can compare to a celestial slayer with the aura removed. Juwon can finally move again, and he shakily accepts their terms for only one person to remain with them. As they previously agreed, that person will be Donghun. As the group turns to leave, Juwon is left angry at the fact that they dared to do something like this to him. He swears that he will complete the quest and make sure that all of them die. They return to the subway and regroup, and Hyunjin was a bit worried towards the end there, but thankfully, they all made it out alright. Donghun decided to stay voluntarily though, so there's no need to worry about him at all for now. They should focus on preparing to face the actual boss. Sehun takes them back to the safe zone from earlier and introduces them all to the item shop that he showed Jisoo and Mina earlier. Just like the other two, the group had no idea something like this existed, but they helped themselves to the vast number of items and weapons in the shop. As the group arm themselves, Hyunjin asks Sehun if the other team will really leave them alone after killing the boss. There's no way they would do that since all of them were so eager to kill them earlier. For now though, Sehun assures them that they don't need to worry about it, although he refuses to elaborate why. There'll be no such thing as an after for the group once Sehun is finished with them. Sehun leaves the group to make a phone call, and as he's rounding up, Jisoo sneaks up on him without being noticed. She has a weird way of moving around without giving off any presence, which Sehun is still not used to. He doesn't tell her who he was speaking with on the phone, and instead, he shows her the new items he got from the item shop. One of them is a sharp spear, and there are also training bracelets with adjustable weight settings. All of these are for his plans going forward, but he still refuses to elaborate exactly what he wants to do. As the two head back to rejoin with the group, Jisoo asks Sehun when he decided to learn how to use a spear. He can't tell her that he learned it from his previous life, so instead, he lies that he had a little practice before the start of the game back in his last life. He wasn't particularly good at anything, since all the weapons he tried were pretty mediocre. But at the end of the day, when it comes to winning and surviving, talent wasn't a necessity for him. After all, at the end of the day, the one who outlived the best of the best and survived until the end of humanity was him. This time, he plans to become the strongest in the world. No matter the cost, they regroup with Hyunjain, who managed to buy some good equipment with the points he got from completing their first quest. It also looks like he became an avatar as well. Considering Hyungyun's personality, it must not be an evil god, only time will tell though, and all he can do for now is watch and see what happens. Now that everyone is fully geared up, it's time for Tame to head out and take on the boss. Before they leave though, Sehun tells them that he and Jisoo will be moving separately from the main group. Then he hands Hyunjain the spear that he just bought, coated in orichalcum. He instructs the leader to stick the spear in the center of the room when they find the boss stage. Because of the orichalcum, it should go into the ground easily as soon as they stick it into the floor, and they just have to make sure that the tip is facing upwards. Then he tells Hyunjain that once the time is right, he will give them a signal through their cell phones so they can lure the spear. These seem like very unrelated things, but it's once again part of Sehun's plan, which he refuses to elaborate on. Now that everything has been set up, it's time for the group to make their move. Hyunjain throws out a message through their group chat, and Dong-hun also catches wind of it. It's been a while since he has been locked up, and since then, the criminal group has challenged the boss 3 times with no progress. There's a good chance that Sehun is right about what he's saying, but it's still a mystery as to how he has so much information. Even Dong-hun's warned him to be wary of Sehun, since he must have something up his sleeve instead of just sitting quietly and waiting for everything to unfold. Dong-hun decides to make his move. He calls out to the guard watching over him and tells him that he has some information about the quest to tell their boss. He wants to talk directly to the leader and give him some vital info that will be a great asset to their quest. Sehun Kim may be a huge threat, but Joohyun's strength is something else entirely. If Dong-hun had to pick a side, he would definitely choose Joohyun. The guard agrees but warns him that if this turns out to be nothing, then there will be consequences. Elsewhere, Hyunjun and his group journey down into the underground of Lomi Tower. The only monsters they can see in the area are a few mutant rats that they are able to kill with no problems at all. Because the monsters are in a dark area, they are weak to light, and that makes it even easier for the group to slowly take them out and proceed deeper into the area. Sehun is easily making quick work of the rats, and he's killing them way more efficiently than the others. They have been making progress for a while now, and they have already made it halfway into the basement of the building. The area goes down to the 6th floor underground, and they are at the 3rd one right now. As they are making plans to go deeper, Sehun gets a text from Mina informing him that they are heading down into the sewers. Back up at the surface, Joohyun is coming to terms with the fact that the monster they have been fighting was never meant for them to defeat. It's a basilisk with a petrifying gaze, and it has easily frozen and killed all his men so far, heavily reducing their numbers. He's trying hard and failing to figure out what to do to take the monster down. The guard from before leads Dong-hun into Joohyun's private room to talk about whatever he wants to say. He tells the criminal leader about his group's real intention of finding the boss monster underground, and how the monster on the rooftop is not the real boss at all. It was all a trap using reverse psychology to deceive them, and Joohyun vows to make them pay for doing this. Dong-hun doesn't care about their conflict or who wins. At the end of the day, he'll just side with whatever team manages to come out on top. Even if his team wins, his god should be able to negate the penalty. As they move to start heading into the underground, the guard from earlier starts laughing at Dong-hun for his contribution to their team. Dong-hun decides not to think too much about the weird behavior of the guard, and follows them to track down Hyungyun's team. They reach the entrance to the basement, and surprisingly, no one is in the area. Joohyun sends out his team to search the entire place and locate them as fast as possible, but there's no sign of them. The guard suggests that they might have run away to the basement to finish the stage and escape. Joohyun agrees with them, and the team starts to make their way into the basement to confront Hyunjain and his group. The area is dark and unwelcoming. Unlike Hyunjain, who equipped everyone with flashlights thanks to Sehun's foresight, this group has nothing to use and see where they are going, but they can see 2 people calmly watching them stumble through the dark. It's Sehun and Jisoo, and the 2 of them were aware that the criminals would come after them. So they waited at the entrance first to stop them. Sehun then addressed Dong-hwan, since it's his betrayal that led them all there in the first place, and his backstabbing nature was way too predictable. Dong-hwan still thinks he's on the winning side and warns Sehun that he is done for since they are about to fight this entire group of psychopaths. Sehun isn't bothered at all and asks the guard standing next to Dong-hwan if he agrees. It turns out that this guard was actually Mina the entire time, and she was working with Sehun to lead these guys here in the first place. Sihun wanted them all gathered in one place because he had been planning to wipe them all out at once, all of them, including the criminals, Donghwan and the monster at the top of the building. Now that they are all ready to brawl, Sihun prepares to fight them, although he's short on time since he has to hurry up and fight the basilisk at the top of the building too. Jisoo steps up as he's wondering how he's going to do everything in time and tells him that he should go ahead with her level of strength. She should be able to handle these guys pretty easily. Since Jisoo has offered to take care of them herself, Sihun grabs Mina and leaves, since he will need her for the final boss fight. Before he leaves though, he tells Jisoo to leave Donghwan alive for later. That's disappointing for Jisoo since she wanted to personally take him out, but she obliges since it's an order from Sihun. With that done, our MC turns to leave, but a blade comes rushing towards him in a split second. While still holding Mina, he dodges the attack and rushes towards Juhyun, sending him and half of his group flying with a single punch. Now that he has no more obstacles, he turns to leave again, allowing Jisoo to take over the beatdown. He noticed that something changed about her personality, but he can't quite tell what it is. Regardless, he decides to leave everything up to her for now. Juhyun starts to pick himself up from the ground and orders his subordinates to stop standing around and go attack. After all, it's just one girl against a whole group of criminals. The first person to run up to her is the first to figure out that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. She uses her weapon to cut his body clean in half, killing him before he even had a chance to launch an attack. Jisoo warns them all that none of them are leaving the area without her permission as she prepares herself for another attack. Juhyun notices from the look in her eyes that she sees them similar to how he would see an insect, almost as if she's heavily looking down at all of them. He once again tells his men to try and rush her, and they all go charging in with their weapons. But Jisoo is more concerned about how much blood she might accidentally splatter on the ground. The first man to try an attack gets his head smashed in before he can even land a hit. The person behind him doesn't even have time to figure out what happened before Jisoo rushes over and takes him out with a clean uppercut. Another man takes advantage of her blind spot to stab her from behind, but she shrugs off the attack like it's nothing and punches him on the forehead, killing him instantly. The wound inflicted by the stab heals itself instantly, and thanks to her Celestial Slayer abilities, the sight of her blood starts to make her even stronger than she already was. Meanwhile, 3 other men try to attack her all at once, and she easily dodges all their attacks before one-shotting every single one of them before they can even react. Jisoo's rampage continues, and she easily takes all the men out with single precise strikes without anyone even managing to land a hit on her. There are at least 30 of them, all fighting together, and she's easily overwhelming them without even breaking a sweat. Juhyun watches all of this happening in shock, but he still believes that he can handle her. After all, he's stronger than her and larger too, so he should be able to take back the fight. Jisoo finally turns her attention to him and throws the extendable part of her mace towards him. But Juhyun blocks the attack by grabbing one of his teammates and using him as a human shield. Now that it's come to this, it's time for him to show off why he's a chosen avatar of the god of death, Hades. He activates a special ability given to him by his god called Death Sentence, which allows his attacks to have a guaranteed chance of killing an opponent with one hit for a minute. His weapon charges up with energy as he activates the attack, and he's sure that he will be able to take her down and finish this once and for all. As he prepares to launch his attack, Jisoo turns her attention to him for less than a second, and he suddenly finds his head detached from his body in the split second that she acknowledged him. She killed him instantly without even a second thought. Despite his confidence, he couldn't even make a difference in fighting her elsewhere. Sihun and Mina rush towards the top of the tower. Mina is still concerned about them leaving Jisoo behind like that, but Sihun is mostly confident that she can take care of herself. He looks strong on the outside, but in reality he only has one powerful ability, and it takes a long time to activate. For now, they should be more focused on Sihun's plan with the basilisk. Mina doesn't believe that our MC wants to fight something that dozens of men have already failed to bring down. Sihun himself isn't completely sure they can win, but that's why he brought Mina as his trump card. Her transformation ability might be her only power, but that's what he needs from her. After a few more minutes of climbing, the two manage to reach the top floor, and it's time to face the final boss. Before they enter, he needs her to transform into a certain animal. It will be hard for her, but Sihun promises to give her 2,000 points worth of gear later if she does what he wants with the motivation of points. Mina is a lot more willing to transform for Sihun, and she turns into a weasel, though she still doesn't know exactly how that will help him. Now that all the preparations are complete, Si-hoon opens the door to the boss room, so they can finally start the final battle. The place is a mess and filled with statues of people who were turned to stone as they were trying to escape. This is the effect of the basilisk's petrifying gaze. Now that they've successfully made it in and not immediately died on the spot, it's time for Mina to head in and go find the boss. That won't be necessary though, since the thing is so big that she didn't need to even look very hard to see it. The giant monster is the size of the room, and just as terrifying as it is large, it is clearly the sentinel of the stage, which means it was a monster never meant to be beaten. As he approaches the monster, it wakes up and introduces itself as Orga, and kindly tells Si-hoon that his life will be spared if he leaves quietly and without making too much noise. Si-hoon has no intention of turning back now, even though things are not in his favor at all. Unlike the Minotaur from the first stage, this sentinel is a named boss that has been properly made to be unbeatable. The biggest problem with fighting a beast like Orga is its petrifying gaze. Once it opens its eyes, it turns everything that it sees into stone. That is usually the case. But he has a plan with his trump card Mina. It's her time to shine, and he tells the girl, who is still in the form of a weasel, to go and try to fight the boss just like he told her to earlier. When she tries to refuse, he grabs her by the stomach and tosses her towards the beast. Orga opens its eyes to look at her, and Si-hoon takes the opportunity while it's distracted to rush in and try to deal some damage, since the monster wasted its petrifying gaze on Mina. It has a down before it can attack again. During that time, Si-hoon plans to take care of its eyes while it's distracted. He throws his blade towards the monster's head, hitting it right in the eye before taking cover behind a wall. Unfortunately, it looks like an ordinary sword isn't enough to damage a sentinel, but now that he's focused on Sean, Mina takes the opportunity to rush towards Orga and try to attack as well. Although his petrifying gaze hit her directly, according to folklore, the basilisk has a weakness to weasels. So as long as Mina is in that form, the creature's petrifying gaze cannot affect her. Although that makes things slightly easier, a weasel isn't nearly enough to fight a giant monster. Somehow though, Mina manages to survive its attacks and swiftly climbs up its body before it can squish her. Orga tries the petrifying gaze one more time, but it once again doesn't work on Mina as she continues to distract it. While the two are facing off against each other, Si-hoon takes the opportunity to run underneath the beast and try to launch another attack. Orga notices his attempts and tries to stop him with its giant body, but that gives Mina just enough time to climb up to its eye and attack it. The basilisk screams in pain as its eye is blinded by Mina's attack. That stops it from being able to activate its petrifying gaze ability, which will make it a lot easier to fight. Even though things should be easier, that doesn't mean it's over yet for Si-hoon. Even a single scratch from the basilisk would be lethal, but thanks to its size, its attacks are easy to notice and dodge. The monster continues to attack as Si-hoon gets a notification from his phone. Now that he's done stalling, it's time for the final part of his plan to finally be enacted. He separates from Mina for a moment, and the two spread out around the room as the monster continues to attack Si-hoon. Finally, after a little bit more fighting, the monster manages to land an attack that Si-hoon isn't able to properly dodge. Then it prepares itself to land the finishing blow. Just before it can land the hit, Si-hoon snaps his fingers, which is the signal for Mina to come back into the game. She turns into a chicken and yells out as loud as she can, which causes the basilisk to shriek back in pain just like with the weasel. The basilisk is also inexplicably weak to the sound of a chicken's call. Si-hoon takes to the offensive and uses his dagger to try and attack the beast, but they don't even leave a scratch on its hard outer scales. Although he's not able to injure it, the attacks that have landed so far are enough to weaken it exponentially. However, things are starting to look dangerous, and Si-hoon is going to need to try his best to finish this as soon as possible. The tricks and weaknesses that he has prepared are not enough to weaken the gap between them. The monster moves closer to our MC, confident that it can finish things off quickly. Now that Si-hoon doesn't have any more tricks up his sleeve, Si-hoon notices that the basilisk has stepped right where he wants it, and tries to keep it busy by talking more. He admits that the gap in their power is way too much, and he knew from the beginning that he wouldn't be able to win. That's why he had to think very hard on how exactly he would kill the basilisk. In his previous life, he was used to battling impossible opponents because he has done it countless times before to defeat an opponent that is superior to him in every way. He doesn't need the power of the gods or overwhelming stats, or any of the other things that make other players overwhelmingly strong. What he needs is experience and patience, And those two things are what allowed him to become the last remaining survivor of the God's Game. Orga is done hearing the pointless rambling and finally prepares to launch the final attack, but it's already too late. Sihun's plan is complete, and he smirks as multiple explosions ring out through the building. The walls and pillars start to crumble around them as Sihun explains that he had someone install bombs all over the building over the course of an entire week. These bombs can be remotely detonated. But they rarely work on monsters or players, of course. That means that they want work on this massive monster. But that wasn't his plan at all. All his running around wasn't for nothing. His true goal was to attach the weight bracelets he bought from the store earlier onto the monster without it realizing. With all of them attached, Sihun turns the weight setting up to its highest level, causing the fall to the ground from the enormous weight on its limbs. Then with one final kick, Sihun sends the beast falling through the floor, down through the freshly destroyed building. Even with all this though, the fall isn't nearly enough to kill the monster, and after it regains its strength, it plans to rise back up and kill Sihun immediately. But waiting at the floor of the basement, right where Sihun ordered it to be placed, is the golden spear coated with orichalcum. Ordinarily, a normal spear wouldn't be able to kill him since this is only the second main quest, and there are no items strong enough to heavily damage a sentinel, but a spear coated with the strongest metal in existence is a whole different matter entirely. Meanwhile, just before the monster fell through the ceiling, Hyunjin and his group were battling the actual boss of this quest, right in a losing battle. The group of players were barely able to land a hit on the thing, and it's obvious that they have no chance of winning on their own. Luckily for him though, he placed the spear into the ground and lured the boss close to it just like Sihun had ordered him to do. Right as things were looking bleak, the explosions went off, and not long after, a giant monster that they had never seen before fell through the ceiling. It's the basilisk, and it fell from the top floor of the tall building, through all the floors below it, down to the basement and right on top of the boss monster, with both of them dying immediately. With that, a message pops up from the system informing them that they had cleared the second main quest successfully. Hyunjin is surprised that the main quest has ended, and he received a silver ranking despite barely doing anything, and he has no idea what's even going on. Then the system displays another message saying that the next main quest will begin after a set period of time when certain requirements are met, meaning that they will have a lot of free time before the next objective. As the group is trying to figure out what happened, Sihun joins them in the basement, completely unscathed from the proud look on his face. It's easy to tell that he had something to do with the quest completion. Even though he doesn't have a scratch on him, Hyunjin can't say anything though, because he knows that there's no way they could have defeated the monsters without his help. The Sins on the other hand were different, and they were definitely strong enough to defeat the boss monster. Both they and Sihun completely outclassed them in strength and power. Hyunjin is frustrated by the obvious power difference between them all, and he vows to get stronger. Sean meanwhile heads down to pick up his spear. Now that the quest is over, the next question is where to go next from there. Sihun says that he wants to travel anywhere the road takes him, but he tells Hyunjin to give him a call if anything happens. With that, the two separate and Sihun walks off to start his next adventure. However, he knows that Hyunjin must have realized that his current strength is not enough. Sihun hopes that he can at least survive until the 7th quest. That shouldn't be a problem for him since he's a chosen avatar. But our MC still doesn't know what God chose him. Sihun and Mina meet back up with Jisoo in an unoccupied store. She's casually cleaning her weapon, and it seems like she even changed her armor after the fight. That means that the battle she had must have been at least slightly intense, just as they agreed. Jisoo spared Donghun's life and locked him in a closet to wait for Sihun. Our MC heads over to check on him, and the former vice president immediately gets up and tries to attack Sihun before he can even say anything. On top of imprisoning him against his will, Jisoo also placed one of the weight bracelets around his neck, which Sihun quickly turns on, slamming Donghun into the ground because of its weight. After it seems like Donghun has learned his lesson a bit, he turns off the intense weight, allowing him to move again. The device won't come off easily, and because of it, he's completely under Sihun's control. This is all because he tried to kill everyone multiple times, all the way back to when he tried to keep them in the gym during the first quest. He was so determined to betray them this time that he didn't even notice Mina standing right next to him. It only managed to work out because Sihun was there. In any other scenario, their entire school would have been killed because of him. This is Sihun's physical punishment to him. His psychological punishment is something even more devious. Sihun shows him an absolute contract and asks him to sign it. It's a contract that can never be violated by the person who signs it. It states that the contractor must be altruistic, caring, and sincere unless they will die by an implosion from their choker. At first, Dong-hun tries to argue, but Jisoo comes up to them and stands menacingly behind him with her weapon, making it obvious that refusal is not an option. Dong-hun rushes to sign it, and as soon as he does, he turns and tries to leave as fast as possible to escape Jisoo. He can go anywhere he wants now anyways, since thanks to the bracelet, Si-hoon can track him anywhere he goes thanks to that. Dong-hun is now forced to obey him no matter what, and he would die immediately if he dares to go against any of Si-hoon's orders. He approaches Jisoo, who is checking the status of her last quest. She achieved gold tier again, but also must have gotten a lot of points because of the shared rewards between party members. Now that they are done with important quests though, it's time for them to decide where they want to go next. Jisoo has somewhere she needs to visit, so because of that, they have to move separately for now. Thanks to the fact that they are party members, they will easily be able to track each other's location and reunite at a later time. With that, the two plan to separate so that Jisoo can head out on her personal quest. The only person left to compensate is Mina, who had been the most helpful during their quest. He decides to give her a reward for everything she has done for him so far, and she's excited that it might be something powerful. Si-hoon reaches into his inventory and pulls out a stealth ring which will allow the user to hide themselves completely. It's a brank item, and also extremely rare. It's such a good item that Mina is almost hesitant to take it from Si-hoon. Jisoo stares at Mina jealously for a moment, and Si-hoon assures her that he will get her something next time, as well. Now that they've gotten all their shared issues out of the way, it's time for each of them to get moving with their own personal quests. As Si-hoon continues to trek through the deserted roads without Jisoo, he notices that there are a lot more observers around him than usual. It's only natural though, after what he managed to pull off during the second quest. He's more concerned about the fact that Mina is following him, even though he doesn't need her help for anything anymore. What's more is that her observer is the worst one of all. That won't make too big of a difference anyways, since the gods should already know about his appearance. The question still stands as to why Mina is following him anyways. That's because she can tell that he's pretty strong, so she has decided to stick with him for a little while longer to see if she can get anything out of it. She's incredibly honest with her intentions, which is definitely better than Dongguan underhanded ways. She also plans to help him, so it doesn't seem like she's just leeching off of his power. As the two continue walking, they come up to a group of hostile people who seem to be guarding some sort of entrance to a dungeon. Si-hoon raises his hands in surrender and turns to leave, which confuses Mina, since it seems like he wanted to farm that dungeon. He plans to enter it through his own means, and Mina is ready to help him stir things up if need be, but he has another idea in mind. Since the entrance has been blocked off by those people, Si-hoon plans to make an entrance for himself. Meanwhile, the gods continue to discuss the state of the game in the forums. In honest life, Dongguan God complains about the fact that his avatar has been completely shackled by some guy, and because of that, he can't do anything in the game. Young Jester, on the other hand, finds the situation hilarious and teases the god for his misdoings while they two argue. The other gods bring up the fact that there are some good dungeons in the area that they can raid. Si-hoon watches all of their discussion, and thanks to it, he's able to pinpoint the location of the dungeon that those people were guarding. They walk through the city and stop at a random street that Si-hoon believes should have the dungeon. Then, he places his hand on the ground and scans the area with a new ability, which allows him to search a 50-meter radius with his hand to find items in the area. It's a platinum reward that he got for defeating the basilisk. Thanks to it, they are able to find the boss room of the dungeon that the men were guarding from before. It's 20 meters underground, though, which means that they normally wouldn't be able to reach it since dungeon walls are protected by special magic, meaning there's no way to break into the room without going through the dungeon. For a normal player, that would be completely true. But Si-hoon is a pay-to-win player, and thanks to the DLC store, he has the exact tool that he needs to get into that boss room. It's a dungeon destroyer's excavation drill, which can be used to dig the terrain of a dungeon. He lies to Mina that it's a quest reward, and then gets to work digging into the ground towards the dungeon. After 5 hours of constant digging, they are able to break into the boss room and arrive at the heart of the dungeon. Waiting for them in the room is a mantis boss, and a horde of lesser mantis. The monsters immediately rush to attack them, and the two get ready for a fight. Si-hoon asks Mina to handle the lesser mantis and watch his back while he tries to kill the boss mantis. He uses the orichalcum-coated spear that he used to defeat the basilisk to make a way through the mantis monsters defending the boss. Thanks to the fact that the insects have very open weak spots, Killing them is incredibly easy for Si-hoon, and he finally pushes his way up to the boss. The main mantis boss should be even easier to defeat thanks to its size, making it much slower than the smaller one. Si-hoon is able to calculate and launch a strong attack that blows the mantis midsection away, killing it instantly. With that, they defeat the dungeon and become the first players in the world to defeat a dungeon, earning them 1,000 extra points as a reward and the achievement of First Experience Hunter. It's a weird name, but he tries not to think too much about it. Instead, he's more focused on the fact that more achievements also increase the amount of rewards he will get going forward. Next up is checking out the rewards from the mantis boss. He gets an F-level magic stone and an A-rank skill called Precise Strike. They're not really the best rewards, but it's better than nothing. These rewards are only the boss drops, and the rest of the rewards for the dungeon are tucked away in the corner. It's a lot of loot and gold, which can be sold in the store for a good amount of points. Si-hoon and Mina spend some time packing everything before leaving. About 4 days later, the group that had originally been clearing the dungeon finally make it to the boss room. They are excited that they could be the first people in the entire world to clear a dungeon, and after almost a week of fighting endless hordes of insects, it's finally time for them to reap their rewards. When they open the door to the boss room, they are met with a completely empty room filled with decaying monster corpses and a suspicious-looking hole in the ceiling to add insult to injury. There's also writing on the wall mocking the adventurers for not getting there in time. Later on, Si-hoon logs into the God's chat forum and comes in the middle of an argument between young Jester, who seems way too pleased with herself, and a god who was probably affiliated with the people that got their dungeon stolen. It looks like they are having the time of their lives, and Si-hoon decides to take the opportunity to throw in another piece of bait. He tells the gathered gods that he found a pretty good dungeon in the area, and that catches their attention. Then he shows them a map with a marker pointing to the Seoul National University of Education station, and he tells them that there should be a crank item in the area. Young Jester can vouch for the validity of his claims since he has already given them valuable information several times before, but the others aren't as trustworthy. And one of them even wants Si-hoon to reveal who he really is. Luckily for him, there's a general rule in the forum that protects people who want to remain anonymous with the new information in hand. The group start to gather their avatars to head towards the dungeon, trusting Si-hoon's words. Thanks to this, every avatar in the area will be gathered in one spot. Even young Jester informs Mina that she should head over to the university, but Si-hoon declines. According to his memories, there are indeed high-ranking items there, but they are all useless. It's only good as bait. Instead, Si-hoon wants them to do the next main quest. Although there's no time limit for this third quest, Si-hoon wants to get it done before the fourth main quest pops up, so they don't miss out on the rewards from the third quest. Before they start heading there, though, Si-hoon wants to get an ability first. And although he doesn't immediately tell Mina about it, he mutters to himself that he needs a constellation. They head over to another nearby dungeon, and this time, Si-hoon can't just dig into the boss room like he did before, because it's way deeper than the last one. Because of that, they have to head into the dungeon from the main entrance and clear it out normally. But first, he gives Mina a scarf that has the ability to block ranged attacks. The two head into the dungeon, and the first thing Mina notices is that it's way too quiet. It's almost hard to believe that this place is a dungeon. It's also dark, which makes it very hard for them to see. The two of them continue walking through the dungeon, and after a while, it starts to feel like they've been circling around the same place for a while. Si-hoon already knew this, but there's a reason that they've been walking in circles for a while, and that reason is about to show itself to them in a moment. A sharp gust of air blows through the cramped subway, and something heads straight towards Mina. Thankfully, the scarf that Si-hoon gave her comes in handy and blocks the attack before it can reach her. The scarf is actually an item called the Cloth of Protection, and it's guaranteed to block 5 ranged attacks. It will then be destroyed after it's fully used. Thanks to that attack, Mina only has 4 blocks left, so they can't be too careless. The arrow that tried to attack Mina proves that Si-hoon came to the right place. He takes a quick peek into the forums, and it looks like other avatars are having the same problem, as some monster in the shadows keeps killing them before they can fight back. Mina brings up an idea that she could turn into something small, but anything that she might turn into will still get hit regardless of how small she is. There's only one thing that can avoid the attack. Si-hoon tells her what that animal is, then gives her some instructions to follow. After he gives a signal, another arrow heads towards Si-hoon, and the cloth protects him, leaving him with 4 protections left. Then he wraps an item around the arrow called the tracking threads. When the thread is wrapped around an object and thrown, It heads towards the object's original owner. The arrow flies through the darkness and eventually lands beside a dark archer who was hiding in the dark. The monster is called a Ranger of the Night, and it's a creature that gains movement speed when moving in a dark area. Sahan rushes towards it before it can run away again, and in defense, it fires an arrow at RMC, consuming another use of his scarf. With only 3 left, Sahan has to figure out a way to finish this fight as quickly as possible. The Ranger tries to escape in the shadows, firing multiple shots at his pursuer as he backs away. 2 of them manage to hit, leaving Sahan with 1 more protection before he's left unguarded. The Ranger draws his bow and fires 1 more arrow, using up the last protection from the scarf, causing it to disintegrate into nothing. But it's already too late. Sahan has closed the distance, and it's only a matter of time before the 2 clash. But the Ranger smiles as it has 1 last trick up its sleeve. With Sahan so close, he makes for an easy open target, and the Ranger draws it again, firing a shot that's guaranteed to hit. But Sahan has already won this fight, and he skillfully dodges the arrow as a bat flies down from the ceiling, holding a small orb in its hands. In video games, there are usually small creatures that creep around in dungeons. They are usually set to be non-interactive to the characters and monsters alike. Thanks to that, they usually go unnoticed no matter how much they move about the stage. And that's exactly what Sahan was counting on when he told Mina to transform into a bat and blend in with the other bats hanging from the room of the stage, and when the time was just right, she would soar down with an orb of light, which is an item that flashes a bright light, blinding all players and monsters within its radius for 10 seconds with everyone in the area blinded. Sahan takes the opportunity and stabs the monster right through the chest before it can escape again. The strategy works brilliantly, and the monster lays dead at their feet. After a grueling battle, it looks like there aren't any special rewards like in the. This was a raid dungeon, and these kinds of dungeons usually don't offer many rewards, since there are no monsters other than the boss. However, the rewards for defeating the boss are still incredible. From this battle, he gained a Branked Coat of the Night and Cranked Knight's Gloves, as well as a new skill called Shadow Rush, which the boss monster used multiple times to blend into the shadows and escape. Finally, he gained an ability called Guaranteed Shot, which allows him to throw or shoot towards a target with pinpoint precision. With all these rewards, Sahan's stats are not fully stacked, and he has an incredible amount of abilities. Right now, he should be the strongest player in the world, but it's still now enough to defeat his target for his next quest. Clearing the next main quest won't be a problem, but his goal is 100 completion of the game. He also has a first playthrough transfer package, which he will unlock eventually after completing the main quest. Once he uses it and gets his old abilities back, he will be able to defeat that monster in the 3rd quest. His next target is the monstrous crow that devastated his last playthrough. Meanwhile, with another member of his team somewhere else in the city, Jisoo rings the doorbell of what used to be her home. There were many monsters in the way of her getting here, but none of them posed a serious problem. After some more knocking, Jisoo is forced to use her super strength to break open the door. Inside the house, there are more monsters, but they are more of an annoyance to her than a threat. She quickly takes them all out in a matter of seconds, crushing some of them with her bare hands as if they were simple bugs. Deeper inside her house, she finally finds one of the people she was looking for. Her father lay on the ground in a pool of his own blood. Clearly long dead, Jisoo takes a moment to cry for her lost parent, but her tears are interrupted by a ringing phone on the table. She shakily picks up the call, and it's her mom on the other side. Back with Sahan and Mina, the 2 of them arrive at their next quest location, but it's not what they expected. It's an amusement park called Lome World, and despite the devastation going on throughout the world, the staff there greet them with smiles as if nothing is wrong. It's almost as if the monsters skipped this place in their rampage. However, it's obvious from the wrecked surroundings that monsters have been here recently. It's strange, but there's no way of explaining the weird atmosphere of the amusement park. Mina decides to directly ask the staff what her deal is, but the woman just tells her that she is free to enter Lome World and look around. The place is very clearly suspicious, but Sahan moves to enter it regardless. Their next quest is inside, so they have to enter anyway. The atmosphere is excessively clean, and the employees are definitely human, but they are neither monsters nor players. All of these disturbing features must be for the crow's sick and twisted entertainment. It looks like the staff are forced to live here against their will despite their kind smiles. It's clear that all of them are terrified of something, and they are just working to protect themselves. As they continue to walk through the amusement park, the next quest finally shows up. For Mina, it looks pretty easy, but Sahan's quest is different from what he remembers in his past life. In his last life, the quest was a drank mission, but this time around, he got a crank difficulty. Mina's quest is the 5 stamps quest that he got in his previous life, but his quest is much harder than that. Only 2 people can directly alter his quest, and they are the Game Master and the system. If the GM had altered his quest, then he would have shown himself to our MC, so this has to be the system's intervention. It's only fair though, since he has killed 2 sentinels now and has definitely become a popular figure in the game. Mina notices his sour expression and asks what's wrong. But he doesn't tell her his problem. He takes a moment to organize his thoughts and tries to look at the positive side of things. At least this is a clear indication that his actions are slowly changing the future, just like he wanted the 2 continue to walk around the park. And Sahan asks Mina if she knows about a game called Roller Coaster Typhoon. It's a game about managing an amusement park, and Mina is at least aware of it. He then tells her to imagine that they are inside the game, and everything in the park is under the manager's control. Because of that, they can do anything they want, like cutting off the tracks in midair so all the rides crash straight into the ground. The sales don't matter to them, and all they want to do is see people suffer. That's the mindset that this park is being run with. But the Crow constellation, Kara's. Of course, he can't tell Mina that since he's not supposed to have that information yet, but his words are pretty obvious from how the park is run. They are using civilians as employees against their will, and they are very clearly not looking after their people here. None of the players know about the constellations yet, so he can't directly tell her about it. There are countless powerful monsters in the world. There are the simple mobs and the boss monsters. Then there are the sentinels, who are the highest caliber of monsters. They are usually not meant to be defeated, but the constellations are on an entirely different level from them. The difference is not even in their strength, but in their very existence. The constellations are a different set of beasts entirely, and the ruler of this park is one of these constellations named Kara's. It's a low-level constellation, but it still has divinity, which makes it very powerful. Normally, it would still be too early for constellations to arrive, but this one is an exception. Its constellation level is low enough that it can show up if its divinity is slightly lowered. It used that loophole to sneak its way into the game way earlier than it should have been able to. Its intention is to enjoy itself now, while no one is a threat to it yet. Although it had a low divinity level, its damage to humanity was on par with a constellation of a high divinity level. For now, the best they can do is be careful and keep their guard up while trying to complete the quests. The infrastructure of the environment is definitely different from the Lomé world from before the world changed. That's because the ruler has changed it up to their liking. As they walk through the area, an employee calls out to them to join his ride. He sounds terrified, and he's wearing a collar that seems suspicious. He points them over to his ride, which is a haunted house. Mina isn't thrilled to enter a haunted house, and she tries to complain, but her bickering with Sahan is cut short when the employee's collar starts beeping and flashing a red light. Eventually the collar explodes around his neck as he screams in terror, and the explosion blows his head clean off his body. That directly ties into Sahan's main quest, which is to save all the people in the amusement park and resolve the situation by helping all of them to escape from the area. Right now, there are 138 players and 725 civilians, but as the employee's lifeless body drops down to the floor in front of them, the number drops. The other employees look away as Mina tries to understand what's going on and what just happened. It seems like there was a time limit for being a vendor, just like players have time limits for their quests. Mina starts to cry and wonders if the employee died because of her hesitation to enter the haunted house. But Sahan comforts her and tells her that all of this was most likely just caused by the amusement park's horrible design. In Sahan's past life, a lot of people died, and he only heard the news from the few survivors that managed to escape. But from what he remembers, the place shouldn't be as empty as it is right now. For now, he can't think too much about it, and all he can do is search for the person he was looking for and try to collect stamps. First, he calls out to one of the other employees and asks him to guide them through the ride so they can start collecting stamps. The employee warns them that they won't be coming out of the haunted house the same as how they entered, but it's not like they have a choice. They will die if they don't complete the quest in time. Most of the other players who entered the haunted house died regardless of their enthusiasm. But since they've asked, the staff has no choice but to lead them in to complete the ride. All they need to do is pass all the way through to the other side. It's just as scary as it is straightforward, so they have to make sure to be careful as they walk through the two walk-in, and Mina makes sure to cling on to Sehun's arm for her own safety. They are just at the entrance, and she's already terrified. They reach a bridge, and Si-hoon stops for a moment to make sure it's safe. Suddenly, a spiked wrecking ball falls from the ceiling, almost crashing into them. With how fast it's moving, they don't have time to think about what just happened as more wrecking balls fall from the ceiling, forcing them to run across the bridge for their lives. As they are moving, a monster springs out from nowhere and tries to attack Mina. Si-hoon reacts quickly and uses his spear to stop it before it can take a bite out of her. Then he kicks it back, sending it flying away before it can attack them. With that taken care of, he goes to check on Mina, who is on her knees, crying in fear at this point. There's no way she can carry on, and Si-hoon is forced to lift her on his back for the rest of the way through the haunted house as she cries into his shoulder. Throughout the house, they meet many different obstacles and monsters, and Si-hoon manages to take them all out and run through the entire ride while carrying Mina on his back. Usually, Mina should also be able to take on all these monsters, but she's way too scared to try and fight on her own. Si-hoon continues to run through the haunted house with the crying girl clinging onto him for dear life. This place is similar to a regular haunted house. You make your way through it as traps pop out from every corner. The only difference is that these traps and monsters are very much real and trying to kill them. This is easy for him, but it's difficult having to fight and protect someone at the same time. However, he decides to treat it as practice for when he decides to fight and protect people in the future. In his previous life, he would never have even tried to do any of this for someone else. After a little more fighting, they manage to make it out of the other side, and they even finish in record time too. Si-hoon confidently relaxes now that he's finally out, but Mina is completely winded and out of breath. It's clear that the whole thing took a lot out of her. She tries to play it off, but the sweat and tears covering her face are proof of just how much the entire thing freaked her out. Now that they are done with the first ride, Si-hoon takes the opportunity to ask about the collar around the employee's neck. He wants to get one of them to study for later. The employee is confused, but doesn't argue and gives Si-hoon one of the collars to take with him. According to the man, a user can set certain conditions that will trigger the collar to detonate remotely. To test out his theory, he encases the collar in orichalcum. Then he tosses the collar away so the explosion doesn't affect them. Then he activates the collar, and just as advertised, it explodes exactly when he wants it to. Surprisingly though, even though it exploded, the collar seems fine. That's because the inner explosion of the collar isn't strong enough to destroy the outer coating. As soon as he removes the orichalcum, they can see that the actual collar is completely destroyed. With this little test, Si-hoon has managed to figure out a way to help the other people in the park. Mina never took him as the sympathetic type, and she asked him directly what caused his change in attitude that triggers some memories of a man in his past life who once fought to protect everyone he came across and never abandoned those who needed him. RMC couldn't become like that in his previous life, even though he was also saved by the man this time. He wants to try and be better, but they can't just go around releasing the staff of the park. Even if they get rid of the neck pieces, it's still dangerous for them to walk around the place. For now, it'll be safer for them to do what the system wants them to do until the quest is over. The best thing for the two of them to do is to continue gathering information as they go through more rides. Mina is excited to go through more rides in the amusement park since, other than the haunted house, she's confident that she can take them all on. That's until much later in the day. After they are done going through all the rides, that she realizes that she was very wrong about her assumptions. This place is clearly not a normal amusement park, and the rides definitely reflect that. They are more like death traps than anything, and the two of them barely got out with their lives intact. The roller coasters didn't have safety bars, and monsters flew in from the sky. There were also giant monsters at the end of the water slide, and the Euro drop didn't have proper brakes, so they almost fell to their deaths. In comparison to all the chaos on the other rides, the haunted house was practically a cute little attraction. At least they have collected 4 stamps, which means they only have one more left to complete the quest. Unfortunately for them, it's already too late and the park is closing down, meaning that they won't be able to get the last stamp in time. The sky darkens and evening falls as the park closes down for the night. Music starts to play through the area, and it almost looks like some kind of evening event is about to start up. The two of them hide in the bushes as monsters parade through the streets screaming and laughing in joy. Si-hoon covers Mina's eyes since it doesn't look like something a minor should be seeing. The monsters are parading with tortured humans, and it looks like they are having fun making the people miserable. They also have a dead player among the parade, which just means that the evening entertainment is just for their sick pleasure. Si-hoon decides that they've seen enough of the parade and it's time to go somewhere safe. The monsters are roaming around the park while the buildings and attractions are occupied by employees. Because of that, the hiding spaces for players are extremely limited. He remembers the survivors from his past life telling him about a big safari being in the park. According to the past survivors, the people that were trapped in the area took refuge there constantly through their first to third main quest. That would normally never happen, but Karis the Crow constellation must have gotten involved. He either made a deal with the GM or found a loophole through the system. But whatever his scheme is, Sahan plans to find it out as soon as possible. They make it to the SAF zone and some people are standing guard in front of the area. Mina asks if they can be let in, and the guards notice that she has 4 stamps. They recognize their strength and immediately let them in. Even the leader of the camp only has 3, which means that they are already more reputable than everyone there. The guard leads them to an empty area for them to rest up and then he leaves to inform the leader of their arrival. According to the guard, the people gathered there are about 200 in total, and they are both players and civilians combined. Among the large group of people, Sahan quickly spots the people he was looking for and the person he absolutely needed to get in touch with. The person is a man chosen by Hephaestus, one of the most important gods of Olympus. He's the one and only avatar of Hephaestus, Susong. In his past life, he used to be one of the most famous players in the world. He had the ability to forge weapons that were always traded for incredible prices at the auction house. All the top players had pieces of equipment made by him. It wasn't a stretch to say that humanity's extended survival in the gods game was because of Su's creations. The person Sahan has found isn't the Susong he remembers though. The man he knew would never give up hope even under intense situations, but the kid sitting with his head down has clearly lost all hope. The person sitting beside Su must be his older brother, who died at the end of the 3rd quest in his previous life. Sahan wastes no time and approaches them with Mina for introductions. He manages to get seated with them and Su's brother is more than happy to have them close by. Apparently everyone else has been avoiding them for some reason. Sahan notices that Su's brother seems to be blind because his eyes are constantly closed and it looks like he's unable to see. He doesn't remember that detail from his previous life. Regardless, with all of them seated together, Sahan offers to make light introductions. Shu's brother introduces himself as Changgusong, and they all pleasantly pass around names. As they talk, Sahan notices that Mina is unusually polite. It seems like she is only disrespectful around him and Jisoo with introductions done. Sahan internally wishes that they can get along, but something has been bothering him since they met. Changgu seems like an ordinary player and his sword looks pretty normal, but there is something interesting about the sword. Changgu confirms that he's rather formidable with a sword, even though it has just become a walking stick now that he has lost his eyesight. The mention of his brother's loss in vision causes Su to get depressed and he moves away from the group to rest. It looks like the kid has become quite sensitive lately and Sahan promises not to pry into personal matters again. Considering the mood of the entire settlement, it's not odd for Su to be on his guard around new people. Changgu explains that they just barely managed to run away from a monster that was chasing them. This monster isn't Kara's like Sahan initially thought. It's a sentinel that dominates the area. And it's a monster called Kale Wang. That's strange to Sahan since there should be no other sentinel in the area apart from Orga the basilisk who he killed. It looks like there have been a lot of changes by the system in order to acknowledge Sahan, who has been making quite a name for himself. The world is fundamentally divided and administered by the GMS, but they aren't the highest beings in the game above them. The system regulates and maintains the general laws of the game, and the recent changes in the story must be because of it. Since the system is in charge of setting up sentinels and hidden monsters, the fact that it's changing so many things means that he has gathered some unwanted attention. But Sahan isn't one to back down, and he's ready for whatever changes the world might bring for him. For now, it's best not to worry about all of that and focus on what he's going to do tomorrow. He will have to start by gathering more information and trying to make careful progress. On a different note though, it's impressive how well Mina is sleeping despite the new environment. As he watches her sleep, a sudden sound draws his attention towards someone sneaking away from the group. It's Changgu, and it looks like he's heading out of the settlement. Despite how late at night it is, he stops by the gate where the guards question him. But he promises them that he just needs to go out for a while. They are skeptical of letting him through because of his sight, but he assures them that he is familiar with the geography of the area and he will be fine on his own. Sahan watches him go and notices that the Universal Observer is following him. There would be no reason to follow him if he were simply going to visit the restroom. Something is definitely going on, and Sahan decides to head back into the Gods Forum to find out just what that is. He meets up with young Jester, who seems happy to see him again. She has been seeing him in the chat room more recently, and everyone really likes the useful information that he provides. Sahan gets straight to the point and asks her if he can use her observer to view something. Normally a god should have their own observer, but Sahan lies that the universal observer has bad resolution at night, so he wants to watch with her private observer instead. His story is plausible since it's well known that they don't give out personal observers to gods unless they have a chosen avatar. Sahan also lies that he has been trying to choose a player, but they keep declining his offer, so he wants to use the observer to watch the player. The player he points out is none other than himself, and young Jester reveals that a lot of gods have been going after him, but he keeps rejecting them all as well. She has been watching him since he has been traveling with her avatar, and if she didn't have Mina, she would have tried to go after him as well. Sahan tries not to think too much about her words and asks to use her observer again. Her avatar is asleep, so she has no reason to refuse the request, but her only condition is that he shares information with her first. From now on, Sahan agrees, and young Jester prepares to focus the observer for him. He tells her that he wants to check on a player that went outside the settlement just now. Since there's something odd about him, he uses the observer to follow him, and finds him walking into the empty woods. Changu stops in the middle of a clearing, and a large glowing white bird descends from the sky and lands on a tree in front of him. As soon as the bird lands, Changu gets down on one knee and prepares to give a report of the events, which shocks Sahan as the two talk. Sahan notes that the voice of the bird doesn't belong to Kara's. It must therefore belong to the sentinel that Changu was talking about before, Chilwang. The bird tells Changu to keep a close eye on Sahan and Mina, and report to him if any players in the area try to make a move. Then it flies off, leaving Changu alone in the empty field. Sahan has seen countless people lie and pretend in his first playthrough, so he has enough experience to tell that Changu is completely serious right now. Even young Jester can barely believe how crazy of a plot twist this is. An ally is a spy for the monsters. She asks Sahan how he knew something like this was going to happen, but he remains as secretive as ever. In his mind, though, he struggles to understand why Changu would do something like this. In his previous life, Seo always sang praises about his brother, calling him a kind person who would sacrifice himself to save others till the very end. Sahan has an idea of what's going on, but he doesn't immediately look into it. Instead, he closes the forums and waits till the next day. The more important task is collecting information from people in the settlement. From what he can gather, it looks like the current situation isn't too different from what he remembers from his previous playthrough. The only new element is the monster called Chilwang. It's a rare type of monster called a Bulgasari, which is a metal-eating monster from Korean folklore. It is slow, but it has incredible power and its body is as hard as steel. A Bulgasari has the ability to become stronger and harder depending on how much metal it has consumed, so Sahan's attacks wouldn't be very effective against it in a fight. To make it worse, a creature like that is under Kara's command. As he tries to sort out his thoughts, Mina shows up and asks him what he's doing. It'd be best not to involve her in this, so he dismisses her concerns, but she can already tell exactly what he wants to do. He's thinking of defeating the Sentinel, which is another impossible task. He went through all the trouble of defeating Orga, and now he wants to fight another one. Sahan is sure though that if he had some time and things were under the right conditions, then he would definitely be able to defeat the monster. There's nothing else he could do that would help Susong feel better right now. Now that he has a plan in mind, he gets up and prepares to leave the safari for a while. There's someone in the park that he has to meet, but before he goes, he asks Mina for a favor. He wants her to keep an eye on the Susong brothers. He can't explain it right now, but he wants her to contact him if she notices anything suspicious. With that, Sahan leaves the settlement to go and take a look at the monster called Chaolung elsewhere. At the other side of the park, in a castle, monsters run wild and unchecked as if this is their home. Laying on the floor amidst all the chaos is Kara's, the crow constellation. He settled his nest in this park just for fun, but it turned out to be a great choice. After all, the people's fear and their awe are everything he needs for his opening ceremony. Then he turns around to address the literal giant elephant in the room. Chaolung the Sentinel is here to report about the third main quest, and from what Kara's remembers, the most that a single player has managed to achieve is 3 stamps. That was the case until yesterday when some players managed to receive their 4th stamp. That wipes the smirk off of Kara's face, and he takes a personal look into the status window to confirm somehow, without the help of a god, they have managed to almost beat the quest. He watches footage of them taking part in the rides, and from what the crow can see, they'll definitely obtain the 5th stamp and complete the quest by the end of today. Karas can't do anything about it though, since things will get complicated if a constellation like him gets involved too soon in the 3rd main quest. He's only because of a loophole he used to intervene in this game. Maybe there's a chance that a player like that could visit him, but the odds of that are very unlikely. He orders Qiaolong to leave them be for now. It would even be better for them if some players managed to complete the quest. Less players have been willing to take on the attractions lately due to their extreme difficulty. If 2 players manage to complete the quest successfully and escape from the amusement park, that would motivate others to try and do the same, which would increase the number of fatalities from the ride. With his report done, Qiaolong decides to leave the bird brain to enjoy his time, and he heads out for his patrol. The sentinel is surprisingly diligent, considering that the bird once thought that Qiaolong was just stupid back when they first met. It's rare for a sentinel to be added into the game anyways, and even Arcadis didn't seem to understand it either. Qiaolong heads out for his patrol, hoping that there are far more people to squash today than yesterday outside. Sihun waits in a spot that he has heard is on the path of Qiaolong's patrol. The ground starts to rumble as the giant monster slowly approaches RMC. Confused as to why a human seems to be fearlessly waiting for it. The monster barely makes any reaction, and instead Qiaolong raises his hand to kill Sihun immediately. Since it's under the command of Karas, it's obvious that its way of thinking would be so simple they only want to see the players run for their lives. Sihun prepares himself to fight as the beast's massive hand comes crashing down into the ground, sending debris into the sky. Sihun uses that debris as launching pads to jump into the sky and come face to face with the sentinel. Once he's close enough, he attacks with his sword, but the skin is so hard. Even a sword coated with orichalcum couldn't damage it at all. He must have consumed some metal while he was out on his patrol despite its appearance. This beast is surprisingly the cautious type. Qiaolong is surprised that Sihun was able to dodge its attack, and although it wasn't an all-out attack, he didn't expect to see a player of this caliber who was able to keep up in a fight. Sihun rushes at it once more and drags his sword across its body without saying a word. Qiaolong is more concerned about the fact that Sihun seems to be almost nonverbal, but to Sihun, the monster talks way too much. He wants to fight and not just stand around throwing empty words at each other. That makes Qiaolong angry, and he starts to take the fight seriously in hopes of killing Sihun quickly. Another massive fist comes rushing towards Sihun, and he dodges it once again, landing on the sentinel's arm and rushing up towards its face. There are way more openings that Sihun can utilize because of its size. He manages to reach its face and launches an attack with his sword, but once again it's not enough to even leave a scratch. However, seeing that his coated weapon isn't damaged, this means that Qiaolong's body isn't harder than orichalcum. The problem right now is his lack of strength. Another fist comes rushing at him, and he narrowly dodges once again before launching an attack at its leg, causing it to turn around and try to stomp him. This monster must have some sort of weak point somewhere, but right now, he can't find it. It looks like he's faster than it, at least since he boosted his stats as much as possible to fight the monster. Currently, his stats are maxed out at the limits of a rank, but even with the highest possible stats in the game right now, he can't leave a single scratch on the beast. Another massive strike comes down, and Saiyan manages to dodge it once again, landing in a bush. This is very frustrating to him since he didn't expect it to be easy. But this monster is practically unkillable at this point. It's no wonder that the players are terrified by its name alone. If a sentinel like Qiaolong is this strong, then Karas' power must have been boosted too. His original plan was to defeat Karas here in the park, but it looks like that isn't possible without his first playthrough transfer package. Qiaolong on the other hand is still angry and ready for a fight, but Saiyan hasn't revealed himself since the last attack. That only makes the sentinel even more upset as he hears Saiyan's voice from the bushes calling him way too slow. The monster starts to rip apart the trees in rage, demanding for Saiyan to show himself. RMC is already long gone, especially since he has checked what he came for. There's no way for him to kill Qiaolong with the items and abilities he currently has. He needs to find another attack that can deliver a fatal blow to the monster in the end. It looks like SEO Song is his only option after all. Back in the safari, Mina sits with the 2 brothers and reads a pamphlet to pass the time. Changgu asks her if she's siblings with Saiyan, but that's obviously not true since their last names are different. Despite that though, they seem to get along so well, which makes it even less likely that they are siblings if they get along really well. Mina was also wondering if Seo and Changgu are really brothers since they seem to get along so well. Changgu confirms that they are really brothers, but the reason he was asking is because the two of them seem so unusual. Sayan even managed to get 4 stamps despite the difficulty. Mina proudly displays the fact that she also got 4 stamps. But Sayan shows up to disprove her unnecessary boasting that scares the heck out of Mina, since Sayan never seems to give off any presents when he's around. He joins in on the conversation and Changgu tells him that they were just talking about him and how he met Mina. He caught her while she was trying to rob a bank, and although that makes her sound like a criminal, it's exactly true. The two of them really get along well and their banter makes Changgu laugh. On a different note, Sayan decides to ask Changgu to spare some of his time. There's something he wants them to talk about privately. The two leave the group and Sayan leads Changgu a little into the forest before directly confronting Changgu about his link with Keelwang. Immediately, Changgu pulls out a sword and places it to Sayan's neck, ready to swing at any provocation. He asks Sayan how he got this information, but our MC simply says that he has his ways. He had some other questions too, but it seems like those will have to be saved for later. For now, he tells Changgu to give the fight his best shot. Changgu wastes no time and takes a swing at Sayan's neck, which our MC manages to dodge. Then he quickly changes his stance before Sayan can back away, launching another attack at his face. Despite the fact that he's not able to see, he's not bad at all when it comes to fighting. It looks like Changgu has the mind's eye, which allows him to see and fight despite being blind. Changgu can clearly see that Sayan has some moves of his own, but since he doesn't intend on talking, the best option is to kill our MC here and now. Changgu rushes in and prepares to launch a final blow. And from the stance he's using, Sayan can easily tell that he really knows his stuff. However, Sayan is a beast himself. He catches the sword with his bare hands before it can reach his face. From their fight, Sayan can tell that his agility is between 60 and 70, while his strength is at 50. Those stats are pretty high for a non-avatar. That must mean he put all his points into growing his strength and agility. Changgu pulls back and tries to launch another relentless attack at Sayan, but our MC easily manages to dodge all of them. Then he rushes in for another round, and Sayan somehow manages to parry them all with his hands. That's thanks to his night gloves that he got from the ranger, which are protecting his hands. It's obvious whose strength is superior in this fight now that they've both calmed down. Sayan gets straight to the point and asks why Changgu would work as a spy for Chilwang when they are this strong. The answer is obvious even when the blind swordsman doesn't immediately answer. It's because of Sayo. He made a deal that would ensure Sayo's safety. In fact, when he first met Chilwang alone, Changgu tried to face the sentinel, but he wasn't a match for the hulking beast. In fact, the sentinel only saw Changgu as its plaything. In the end, he ended up losing his eyesight, and Sayo lost his will to fight after seeing what happened after that. He had no choice but to obey whatever Chilwang asked of him. Even though the experience that day was nothing but utter despair, he at least wanted to try and keep Sayo alive, even if it meant hell on earth for him. He has been a spy since he first arrived at the safari, and most of the reports were about the group's movement. Now that the cat is out of the bag, Changgu expects Sayan to tell the group about him. However, our MC has a different plan in mind. Since his double life hasn't hurt anyone yet, they can probably use it to their advantage. They can also use it to get to know Chilwang's actions as well. Chilwang isn't doing anything with the information because it enjoys their fear, and it told Changgu to keep an eye on them to make sure that they don't escape. From how Sayan is talking, Changgu can tell that our MC is planning to fight the beast when it prepares to attack in about a week from now. Although Sayan is definitely strong, even Changgu doesn't believe that he will be able to fight against the sentinel. Any plans or attacks are useless against its strength. Sayan is already aware of all this since he fought the beast earlier. It was different from any monsters he has seen so far, and its body was incredibly hard, but just because he can't kill it right now doesn't mean that it's impossible to kill. Without explaining anything else, Sayan leaves and tells Changgu to share any information he can get with him as well. There's no time to explain things anymore, but Changgu will have to confess everything to Seo. Seo will play one of the most vital roles in the whole thing, and they need him to lift his head up from despair so he can work hard. The two of them head back to the safari, and Changgu keeps to his word and tells Seo about everything that has happened so far. The kid is understandably upset that he's been left in the dark about the whole thing. Changgu just didn't want to make him worry unnecessarily more than he has already done. Seo isn't hearing it though, since something terrible could have happened to Changgu if he didn't say anything sooner. Mina and Sayan watch from the sidelines, and the younger girl realizes that this is why RMC wanted her to watch over them. Now that they've settled their thoughts, the next step is to kill the monster Chilwang. Mina can't believe that he wants to do something so dangerous again, and she decides to leave him to it while she goes off to finish her quest. That's a bad idea though, since Chilwang should be looking for him right about now. Saiyan has been busy, and it's now coming back to bite Mina for being associated with him. She begrudgingly returns to the group as SEO joins them to discuss their plans. They don't have time to waste since thanks to Changgu working as a spy, the monsters could come to kidnap people at any moment. On top of that, they have about a week left before the Sentinel makes its move. They have to fight now, and it's their only way to escape. It would usually be impossible to win a fight with the metal monster, but Saiyan knows that he can trust on Seo's help to balance the scales. He's going to need SEO to make a weapon that can kill the monster. Now that SEO knows the full story, he's more than willing to help. Now that he has the kids' cooperation, it's time for them to get to work. Saiyan purchases the basic smithing package from his VIP store and sets it up especially for SEO to work with. With a setup like this, SEO should easily be able to craft whatever he wants. Mina asks SEO if he finds it weird that all of this equipment just popped out of nowhere, but the kid doesn't care about the details right now. He's just happy to be helpful with something. Last time, the crucial piece was Mina, and now it's SEO. It's obvious that Saiyan had planned to meet and use them this entire time. Mina is just more surprised that Saiyan would go for a kid, but Saiyan tells her that SEO is only 3 years younger than her. To her, he looked like he was in elementary school. Next, he needs her to create a barrier to seclude the area and prevent others from approaching the vicinity. Mina is surprised that he knows about her ability since she only just got it recently, but Saiyan remembers that she should have been able to use it by the third quest from his previous life. With a little bit of work, she sets up a barrier that will make sure that no one even notices what's happening inside the area. That's the blessing of a top-class god like young Jester. It's no wonder that Mina could escape from any situation in her previous life. This is why it's necessary to choose a top-tier god if you're going to be an avatar. Saiyan gives SEO some materials that should allow him to make some top-quality equipment. He got all the materials from his dungeon runs, but the question now is what exactly SEO should make using all these things. Saiyan already has an idea in mind, and he hands the kid a blueprint of a particular weapon. Seo has never seen something like this before, but Saiyan is sure that something like this will be able to kill Chilwang. The monster continues to roam around the park, looking for Saiyan. It expected someone as strong as RMC to try and collect the rest of the stamps. Since no reports have been made, that means that he's probably not at the safari either. As the monster is trying to figure out where to go next, another monster comes up to report that the crow is summoning him. It looks like he will be able to have some fun today. After all, the bear warns him that the other monsters are still getting prepared for the attack. But Chilwang doesn't care. As far as it's concerned, it doesn't need any other monsters to get the job done. Mina and one of the guards from earlier stand watch on a high ground above the safari settlement. Saiyan told them to watch for incoming monsters while survivors in the safari start to plan their escape. They ignored them when they first mentioned an evacuation, but after she and Saiyan showed off their stamps, they immediately changed their minds. Eventually, just as Saiyan predicted, something starts to rumble in the distance, indicating that a monster is heading their way. Mina transforms into an eagle to try and get a better look. She spots what was causing the commotion. It's Chilwang, and it looks particularly angry at the moment. She returns to the group and informs the guard that the Sentinel is on its way. The man runs off to let people know so that they can evacuate faster. They never expected it to be so fast, and it would be better for Mina to take this opportunity and run away, but Saiyan has been so helpful to her, and she has even grown a bit attached to him. Because of that, she doesn't want to just get up and leave him. The only thing that can do is head in to try and distract the monster, but Mina is not sure she's strong enough to do that. Changgu comes up behind her and tells her that there is no need for her to do something so risky. He plans to go and try to distract them himself. It would be shameless of him to run from this after what he has done, and although his skills are no match for the monster, he can at least try to buy them some time. With that, he rushes out to go and confront the monster, all while Saiyan is still nowhere to be seen. The survivors struggle to evacuate as they hear that Chilwang is on his way to their area. The swordsman is ready to take responsibility for being a spy for Chilwang, and he prepares to buy them some time no matter what. Eventually, he catches up to the beast and kneels in front of it, still pretending to be loyal. He tells the monster that he can guide it through a shortcut, so it may hurry up and capture the escaping survivors faster. Kailwong unexpectedly refuses the offer and has figured out Changgu's plan to buy time. Right now, he doesn't want to entertain his meaningless attempts. It's obvious that Changgu has something up his sleeve, since there's no way that he'd be so diligent to run all the way up to the monster left with no choice. Changgu prepares himself to fight the beast for as long as he can. It's been a long time since the two of them fought, and the sentinel is eager to see if his spy has grown stronger since then. Changgu immediately takes the initiative and dashes towards the beast, trying to get a quick attack before he can be spotted. Kailwong is barely affected by the meager attack and swats his attempt away as if he were an annoying fly. His agility is completely meaningless if he is unable to land a proper hit with no other choice. Changgu braces himself for impact as the monster reels its fist back and prepares to unleash a devastating punch. As its fist collides with the ground, it starts to crumble and fall apart, much to the monster's surprise. Sahan stands in front of the monster, calmly holding the new weapon that was made specifically to fight this sentinel. It looks like it should have consumed higher quality metals before this fight started. Kailwong angrily roars at Sahan, but underneath the anger, it's shocked that Sahan somehow managed to break its arm. This new weapon is called the Pile Bunker, and Sahan promises to use it to bash the sentinel's skill in back with Mina. She flies around the area, still in the form of an eagle, to finish an errand that Sahan sent her on. She finds Seo and runs over to him while he's still hiding in her barrier. Seo invites her to come and sit in the barrier with him since it's the safest place for both of them to be. That may be true, but she's still skeptical on how he plans to defeat the monster sentinel. A sound similar to an explosion rings out, shocking them both, and it's clear that the battle is already in full swing. Sahan skillfully dodges all of Kailwong's attacks as it tries desperately to kill RMC. All it needs to do is land one hit to completely obliterate him, but Sahan is just too fast to go down. It looks like it got even slower than before because losing an arm has made it less stable. Continues to punch at air as Sahan successfully dodges each attack. He's waiting for the Pile Bunker to recharge so he can use it to end this fight. There's only about a minute left before it's fully usable again, which means that Kailwong only has a minute left to live. The giant monster cannot believe that someone dares to try and defeat a sentinel when they are only on the third quest. Even though he still proudly attacks and believes he can't be defeated, it's clear that Sahan is getting the upper hand in this fight. Eventually, the Pile Bunker recharges, and Sahan jumps up to his shoulder and places the Pile Bunker against the sentinel's head. Realizing that things have gotten serious, Kailwong tries to bargain, and promises that it won't kill any more humans, but Sahan doesn't trust that for even a second. With nothing else to discuss, our MC keeps his promise of using the Pile Bunker to bash the sentinel's head in, defeating it once and for all. With that, Sahan unlocks an achievement called Sentinel Hunter, which comes with appropriate rewards and also increases the damage dealt to sentinels by 30. Although our MC tried to act cool about it, a sentinel is still nothing to scoff at. He only barely made it through this battle with his life intact. Now that Kailwong is dead, Changgu comes out of hiding from the forest. It got completely demolished, and not even a metal-eating Bulgasari could have survived that. It was all thanks to the weapons Seo made. And although Changgu clearly has many questions, there are way too many observers watching them for Sahan's liking. It's not just the observers either. The survivors who were trying to escape have also been watching the fight from the bushes. Now that the sentinel is gone, they all start to make their move to escape from the park. But Mina remembers that Kailwong was only the mid-boss of the area, which means there is one more powerful boss for them to fight. That causes all the people to pause and look at her in terror and shock. She tries to play it off, but Sahan puts a hand over her mouth to stop her from making things worse. It looks like it's time to explain what's going on to the rest of the people, and after that it will finally be time for Karis to die. The video of Sahan taking out Kailwong makes it rounds in the god forums, and people start to seriously catch attention of him. A user named Greek Boss comes online for what seems to be the first time in a long time, and he's also curious about this mysterious yet powerful player. Sahan managed to kill a sentinel for the second time despite not being an avatar. Questions start to fly towards young Jester, whose avatar always hangs around Sahan, but she wouldn't tell them anything even if she knew. The questions continue to fly in, but the mischievous god ignores them and focuses her attention on the kid that has gotten everyone riled up. He keeps getting more interesting to her every time she sees him, but the question now is how he's planning to handle the crow. Mina meets up with Sahan and asks him if he got any loot for defeating a sentinel. This time he got a grimoire as a reward, and although it looks like an ordinary rock, it's actually an rank ability that gives the user the ability of a Bulgasari. That means that they will be able to any metal they consume into a part of their body. With an ability like that, Sahan can change parts of his body into orichalcum. The item is very hard to come by, and it's a very rare and useful ability. Mina is very obviously jealous despite the fact that she's the one who asked him about his loot. But to her surprise, he gives her the grimoire instead of keeping it for himself. It'd be more useful to her anyways, since with her transformation ability, it would be very useful if she transforms her hands into weapons and uses them in fights. It's a one-use item, meaning that once she consumes it, it can never be retrieved or used by another person, so she's shy to take it from him. But Sahan encourages her to take it for herself and find use with it. She's unusually timid at times like these despite her usual personality. But Sahan assures her that it's her reward for helping him up till this point. After more reassurance, Mina finally accepts the offer and absorbs the item. Gaining the Bulgasari ability, it's too bad that Mina is not in his party because they could have used skill sharing, but because she's an avatar, he doesn't want to bring her in, but they wouldn't have been able to use her transformation ability if she wasn't, so it's a good trade-off. The civilians continue to make their frantic dash towards the exit while the players fight back the monsters approaching them. Meanwhile, Sahan uses the orichalcum to free the people trapped by the exploding collar one by one. They are all set free, but there are so many of them that it'll take a while to do it all at once. Mina meets up with him again and reminds him that they are supposed to finish their quest by getting the remaining stamp for finishing the ride. There's no way that they will be able to do that if they all just run away to fix this. Sahan calls over one of the staff that still hasn't had their collar removed. He should have a stamp on him. And although Mina is skeptical that something like that would work, as soon as the staff member puts the stamp on her arm, a notification window pops up informing her that she has completed the quest. There isn't even a reward for the quest, which shows just how easy the whole thing was supposed to be. That means that they didn't even have to go through all that effort and danger in all those rides. Now that they have figured this out, that means that they can take care of every other player's quest while they are moving. That doesn't include Sahan, of course, since his quest is completely different. Back at the castle, the crow starts to call for Chilwung. He hasn't seen the giant monster for an entire day, and things are starting to look worrying. A mouse monster comes to answer the crow's call, but he also comes with terrible news. He tells the crow that Chilwung is most likely dead. The crow doesn't understand at first and thinks that the mouse is saying that a lot of people are dead, but the mouse repeats itself and tells Karas that Chilwung the sentinel has been killed. The players launched an attack, and the monsters weren't able to react in time. Karas can barely believe it, but he quickly orders the mouse to have every monster in the park obliterate the remaining people in the safari. But that's where the second problem comes in. In truth, all the monsters have already gone to the safari, and according to them, the place is completely empty. That's the last straw for Karas, and he transforms in a fit of rage. Sahan notices the aura coming from the sky and realizes that the time has come. Karas is finally starting to move. The crowd has slowly started to make their way out of the park, but they aren't moving nearly fast enough. There are still some injured people left behind, and their numbers are moving way too slowly for Chongus. Liking Sahan meets up with the blind swordsman, and although things have gone well so far, it won't be over until they all pass through the exit. The problem though is if they can even make it out safely in the first place. After all, the crow will definitely come for them at this rate, and as if on cue, a pair of dark wings descend in the center of the park, right in front of Sahan and Changu. The presence of the person who landed in front of them is enough to show just how much of a threat this monster is. The monster spreads out its wings, and the massive gust of wind that follows is enough to push some people back while others cover their faces to shield themselves from the intimidating pressure. The crow, Karas, has arrived in front of them and he doesn't seem pleased at all. This definitely won't be an easy opponent to fight, and Sahan hasn't been this nervous in a long time. He was tense when facing Orga, but he knew how to work things in his favor and win. And with Chilwung, he was thrown off by the sudden changes, but never afraid. This time, however, he is feeling something aching at him. It's not fear though, it's the anxiety to save the people that are depending on him. In his previous life, he would have abandoned these people without a second thought, but things are different now. He turns and orders everyone to get out while he holds the constellation off and buys them some time. Mina wastes no time and yells for everyone to stop staring and start moving. Of course, Kara's isn't just going to stand there and watch them get away. He sends out feathers as projectiles towards the crowd of people, and Sahan is forced to use his final hour ability to rush over and deflect every single one of them. Kara's is slightly impressed by the fact that Sahan somehow managed to block all the attacks. If things continue like this though, and the crow uses area of effect abilities, it will be difficult for Sahan to protect the civilians. Instead of directly fighting, he starts talking to the crow despite the fact that Sahan is actively belittling and antagonizing Kara's. The crow finds it more funny than anything else. Sahan thinks he deserves it though, since he had to come all the way out to the park to personally capture a bunch of humans. That annoys Kara's a little, and the crow constellation spreads out its wings, and to attack it looks like Sahan has successfully drawn his attention, and all he has to do now is continue stalling it right now. About half of the people haven't made it out yet, so he just needs to stall for about 30 minutes. This moment is what he has been preparing for this entire time. The crow leaps off the ground at tremendous speed and aims right for Sahan, but he uses his shadow rush ability to blend into the ground and escape just before the attack from the crow can land. Sahan tries to stay calm as the crow moves around him. It's obvious that Kara's outclasses him in strength and agility, but our MC has his survival abilities and special items that guarantee that his attack will connect. He leaps out of the ground right as the crow returns to the air to make another strike. Then he uses his guaranteed shot ability to throw a sharp projectile. Normally Kara's would be way too fast for that to pose any threat to him, but thanks to the guaranteed shot ability, his attack manages to catch up and almost hit. Kara's is forced to stop in midair and catch the projectile before it lands. Then he dives to the ground, shattering the pavement below Sahan's feet and causing large rocks to fly into the sky. Sahan manages to dodge them, but the crow uses the dust as cover to launch another attack, swiping the claws at his feet towards Sahan. Our MC just barely manages to dodge, but he gets a cut to his cheek at the last second before he can fully jump away. As the fight continues, Kara starts to get more and more annoyed, and it's clear that he's done playing around. He raises his hand in the air, and Sahan recognizes the ability he's trying to use as something completely terrifying. The constellation's strength is completely beyond what Sahan was expecting, and now it looks like things are about to get much worse. The crow flies into the sky and uses his wings to send another burst of projectile feathers towards Sahan. There are way too many to dodge, and Sahan is forced to take most of them hidden. But the crow continues the attack, throwing more feathers towards our MC. Faced with no other choice, Sahan is forced to use the Celestial Slayer ability, and thanks to it, his movements become much faster, surprising Kara's. Now he's able to dodge all the feathers being shot towards him. On top of that, thanks to the effects of the Celestial Slayer and his regeneration ability, he's able to recover from the damage of the feathers that Kara's fired at him. With these abilities together, stalling for some more time shouldn't be a problem anymore. It looks like most of the people have made it out by now, so he just needs to stall for a little longer. Kara's is forced to use his full power, and Sahan can barely believe how ridiculous things have gotten. Although Sahan's plan requires all the people in the park to escape, Kara's is sure that he can still kill everyone before he is forced to leave the realm. On top of that, in his new form, he won't be bound to the park anymore. At this point, allowing Kara's to become even more powerful, even with all its abilities handicapped, is still cheating. It used a succession ability which made it many times more powerful than it has any right to be at this stage of the game. Kara's starts to move, and he's so fast now that Sahan barely has any hope of dodging his attacks without an ability. He uses Shadow Rush once again to escape a fatal strike, then uses the chance to run. Kara's continues to be impressed by the fact that Sahan has survived this long, and it's clear that he's not an average player. The crow then flies into the sky and uses its wings to send out sharp bursts of wind that destroy everything in their path. Even with this, Sahan is able to dodge them all and survive, even as the area around them has been completely demolished, but it's already too late for him to run with nowhere else to hide. Kara's walks up to our MC and calmly grabs him by the neck, ready to end him at the drop of a hat. Before he can kill Sahan though, our MC has some final words for the crow. Next time, when it seems like he's won, Kara shouldn't take so much time to finish the job, and just like that, all the people in the amusement park finally manage to escape. Which means that Sahan has completed the third main quest. That means that he can now purchase his first playthrough transfer package. As soon as he gets the transfer package, he uses an ability called Proof of Transcendence, and Kara's barely even has any time to react before he starts to cough up some blood. While they were talking, Sahan managed to use his spear to stab the crow in the stomach. Even with the surprise attack, Kara's managed to dodge the hit to his vital spot in a split-second. Proof of Transcendence is an upgradable strength ability that gives the user a 100 stat increase and also allows him to deal critical damage against celestial beings for 30 minutes. Once this ability is used, it cannot be used again for 30 days. Kara drops Sahan and flies away before he can launch another attack. The crow is surprised that a player can possess so much power despite not being an avatar. Faced with no other choice, Kara is forced to take the fight completely seriously and go all out in order to defeat Sahan. He shoots another barrage of feathers towards our MC, but at this point, thanks to his buffs, he's more than easily able to dodge everything. Then he aims and shoots another spear towards Kara's. The crow is confident that the attack won't be able to touch him, but the guaranteed shot ability isn't for nothing. Despite the wall of wind that Kara's has put up to defend himself, the spear still manages to break through, hitting Kara's, who didn't have time to dodge, and forcing him to fall to the ground. Even with that, the spear couldn't pierce his heart despite him having Proof of Transcendence and guaranteed shot applied. Somehow, Kara's is still strong enough to take off to the sky and fire another barrage of razor-sharp feathers. With no time to dodge, Sahan uses a shield to block all the incoming attacks. Then he forces himself to move despite the weight of all the feathers pushing against the shield. Then he throws another spear at the crow, and this one hits right on the mark, stabbing straight into Kara's thigh, bringing him to the ground again. At this point, there is nothing else Kara's can do, and Sahan asks him if he is finally feeling the fear from the situation. Kara's just can't accept the fact that he has been beaten by a human, and he keeps screaming that Sahan is nothing but a bug in the system. Regardless of that though, the gap in their power levels is way too much now. Especially since Kara's has already been weakened by multiple attacks. Everything he tries to throw at Sahan is easily countered, and it's obvious that the fight is over. He tries one last massive attack, but Sahan uses Shadow Rush to escape it, then dashes towards the crow to deliver the final blow. Kara's manages to block it with a wall made out of his feathers, and it even breaks Sahan's weapon, leaving him with nothing else to use. Left with no other choice, Sahan jumps towards Kara's, but there's no way he would be able to win in hand-to-hand combat. Kara's easily slams Sahan into the ground, seemingly regaining the upper hand in the battle. But instead of finishing our MC off quickly, he starts to mock him for letting the little advantage he had get to his head. And that's exactly what Sahan was hoping for. He once again warns the crow that he should stop taking his sweet time to end fights, before using the spear still shoved in the crow's stomach to stab him again. This one finally brings him down, and the crow falls against Sahan, lifeless and dead. In the Supreme Upper Realm, where most of the gods reside, Arkadas, the game master in charge of the Korean server, stares at a status screen showing a picture of Sahan. Because of the crow's decision to go into the human world, and his subsequent death, the GM is left in a horrible position. Ultimately, his death was brought about by the unfair balancing of our MC, and the fact that he somehow managed to use a succession ability. The constellations are still set to have a limited power level in the current patch of the game. For now, Arkadas decides not to make a bug report about the situation, since Kara's was a relatively unknown constellation, so no one should notice his absence for a while. But from now on, the GM is going to have to pay extra attention to him going forward to make sure nothing like this ever happens again after the third quest ends. A major update occurs in the game from now on. The main quest will be in the form of an open world, meaning that players can now travel to other regions and stages by train or subway. Multiple quests can also be carried out at once, and subquests will be added as well as that. Players can now create guilds with a large number of points. After that, the next main quest is set to begin soon, and it will be a large raid where a raid boss will appear in each region, and players are expected to engage in combat with the boss to gain participation points. They can also obtain special materials and equipment by defeating raid bosses. Sahan and Mina read through the information about the new update and the quests while relaxing in an abandoned restaurant. The raid boss quest unexpectedly has a lot of time allocated to defeating it, but that is probably because most people haven't even completed their third quests yet. Changgu and Siyu are also there with them, and it seems like the four of them are moving together for the time being. Siyu managed to fix Sahan's damaged equipment, and now that Sahan has recovered from his fight with Kara's, it's time for him to figure out his next moves. His injuries were pretty serious, but thanks to that, healing all his wounds raised his regeneration ability from F rank to E rank. His next stop is the Taejun region, which is far away from the raid boss. The reason he wants to go there is because he heard that they sell some good bread there, and he also has some business to take care of in the area. Mina can't help but sigh since this is normal behavior for Sahan. She's used to him being unnecessarily cryptic, but for this mission, she'll pass on following him. Young Jester's observer bangs against the window of the store. It's obvious that she doesn't want Mina to leave Sahan's side, and she very obviously spying on them at this point. It's a good thing that Kara's Veil of Darkness ability blocked the area while they were fighting. Because of that, the observers didn't see Kara's heart being pierced at the very end of the battle. Young Jester continues to throw a tantrum with her observer, but Mina is determined not to follow Sahan this time since Mina has made her decision. Sahan decides to make a suggestion to Mina as well as the two Song brothers. He wants them to join the guild that he would like to make in the near future. Mina isn't into those kinds of things, and Changgu is more concerned about the fact that he might not be any help to Sahan in his current state. Siyu, on the other hand, is very excited to be in the same guild as Sahan, and he encourages his brother to join in as well. Sahan tells them all to calm down and not to feel any pressure. For now, it'd be better for them to do what makes them comfortable. However, joining his guild would be generally useful for Sahan. For starters, Siyu Song is going to become the best craftsman in the world, while Changgu Song is a player who is as strong as a chosen avatar. He also has a lot of potential with the rare mind's eye ability. Looking at everything objectively, Mina and the brothers decide to agree to join Sahan's guild. Now that the matter is settled, Sahan prepares to depart to Taejun. He heads over to a train station and boards a train heading towards Taejun Station. On the other side of the train from where Sahan is staying, a few players from the Waning Crescent Guild try to take over the train. Civilians start to run away from the dangerous men holding large weapons, and during all the commotion, Jisoo walks onto the train and notices the rogue players. In the front of the train, Sahan notices that the other side of the train has gotten very noisy. Maybe a monster has appeared or something. That shouldn't be a problem though, since most of the passengers on the train are players, so it should be fine. Instead of worrying about that, Sahan looks through the rewards he got from the third quest. They seem pretty bland this time, and it's a little disappointing to get an ordinary reward despite everything he went through. His first reward is an ability called Hunter's Instinct, which can estimate the location of a monster by its trails. But he also got loot from defeating Kara's, and one of the major things he gained is becoming the new master of the Crow constellation. He also gained Kara's abilities like Eye of the Crow and Veil of Darkness, but to utilize the full power of the Crow constellation, he needs to gain more divinity. As his divinity increases, more abilities will get unlocked. Eye of the Crow allows the user to spawn crows that can scout the area from the skies. There is also no limit to the number of crows that can be spawned, but they become harder to control as he creates more. Then the Veil of Darkness ability allows the user to blend themselves into the darkness. It's different from the ability that Kara's used before, and it's likely that the effect changes depending on the user. Although he only got the lowest level of divinity, it's still a huge gain, and he might also be able to find the observer of a certain god in Taejun. The god is a witch who loved humanity but still wanted every human to live and die. For Saiyan, since there's nothing else to do, Saiyan decides to take a quick nap until they arrive at Taejun on the other side of the train. A lone player runs for his life as all his comrades drop like insects. This person is definitely the girl he heard about in rumors. She has all black clothes and dark hair, and when her hair turns red, nobody can get out alive. He continues to run, but a blunt object slams into the back of his head, pushing him to the ground before he can make an escape. Jisoo stands menacingly in front of him, and it looks like there is no hope of escape. He begs for his life, promising that he will never do something like this again for the rest of his life if she spares him. However, Jisoo doesn't believe him and finds his pitiful begging to be amusing, so she flashes him a smile while stretching her hand to finish him off. The train arrives at Taejun Station, and as soon as the doors open, people run out of the train screaming for their lives. Saiyan comes out from his end, confused as to why there's so much commotion on the other end of the train. His answer comes calmly walking down the stairs, and she greets him with a large smile. It's Jisoo, and somehow Saiyan had no idea what they were even on the same train. Now that they've met up, he asks her if she successfully took care of business. She took care of what she needed to do, then took the train once she noticed that Saiyan was on it. She was checking the map consistently to always know his location so they could meet up again. That's pretty obsessive, but Saiyan decides not to comment on it. But if she was constantly aware of his location, that means that she knew he was in Lome World. Fighting the crow would have been a lot easier if Jisoo was around at first. She wanted to go right away, but the third main quest started while she was on her way there. It wasn't very difficult for her, but there was a lot to take care of, and because of that, she ran a little late. Sayan admits that he came to Taejun to fight the boss in the area, and Jisoo is not surprised. She doesn't even ask him why he came all the way here, because she's used to him doing things that don't make sense. In fact, she would have been fine with his decision even if he only came all this way to buy bread in the area. It's odd to hear that from her, and Sayan doesn't know if she thinks highly of him or not. For now, the two of them start moving towards their final destination, Dunsan, and Sayan explains the details to her as they make their way there. Back in Seoul, Seolium, Mina walks through the streets in search of some people that Sayan told her about. She doesn't know the exact location, but she has been walking for a while at this point, and still can't find them before he left. Sayan wrote down some distinct characteristics of the people she should be looking for. They are a blonde-haired family of two, and the drawings he made are rather crude. The father is a big American man with a strange laugh, and the daughter is a 13-year-old multiracial girl. By the looks of the area, there seems to have been a monster attack recently that killed a lot of people. As she walks through the wreckage, a wolf monster leaps out from the darkness and tries to ambush her. Mina is prepared and turns around to finish the beast in one blow, but someone else beats her to it, slamming a large chunk of concrete on the beast and knocking it away. Mina turns towards the direction that the concrete came from and sees two people that perfectly match the descriptions and drawings that Sayan gave her. She goes up to meet them and thanks the man for helping her to defeat the monster. As they talk, even his laugh is exactly like what Sayan described, but the man's daughter stops him before he can go on to embarrass her. The girl can tell from the number of gods observing her that Mina is probably even stronger than her father. All that's left is to confirm their names. The man is Luke Taylor, and his daughter is Lynn. These are the people that Sayan was looking for. Mina takes the opportunity to ask if she can join them on their travels. The man threw a giant chunk of concrete, which means that he is definitely a player, but she's not so sure about the girl. Luke is more than happy to have her join their group, but Lynn is a lot more skeptical about helping someone that is stronger than them. As the two of them bicker, Mina turns away to send a message to Sayan, confirming that she has found the people she was sent to look for. Traveling with these people might be worth it since Sayan recommended it, but he also called them the key to humanity's future. Back in Taejun, soldiers sweep the streets with heavy artillery, looking for any signs of monsters. It looks like society is trying to pick itself back up again, despite everything happening in the world. A soldier approaches the two of them as they scan the area and asks if they are players. Apparently, there has been an order to examine all the existing players, and it looks like the government is trying to control the players while the world is in its current state. Instead of answering the soldiers' questions, Sayan discreetly tells Jisoo to run towards a building in the distance. The two of them move separately, before jumping away before the soldier can do anything to stop them. They land on the top of a skyscraper, and Jisoo walks up to Sayan, curious about why they came all the way to the top of this building. Sayan wants to try and use his new Eye of the Crow ability to scan the area for the raid boss. He activates it and crows start to fly out of his shadow, soaring into the air. The ability is still crude, and he has much to improve, but this will still allow him to get a bird's eye view of the area. Meanwhile, he asks to check her stats, which Jisoo is more than open to. It almost looks like Jisoo never says no to him, no matter what he asks. He opens her status menu, and her stats are incredibly strong for someone who should be playing the game normally. She also learned two new skills called Anatomy Mastery and Vital Strike, and somehow brought her regeneration ability up to C rank. Her Celestial Slayer ability has also been ranked up to a 3-star ability, which is weird, because she should have shown at least some signs of madness if her Celestial Slayer ability is this high. As he looks through her stats, he gets a from the crows, indicating that they have found something. They head over to the area indicated by the crows, and from the damage, they can tell that whatever was in the area was not an ordinary monster. This wreckage must be the aftermath of a raid boss. Jisoo asks Sehun how he has all this information, but as usual he doesn't answer. The raid boss coming out so early is weird though, because there are still a lot of hours left on the timer. The timers aren't reliable, and most of them are just a trick to throw people off. The area has large markings from big claws and wings. It's likely that some sort of winged monster fought with a different beast. But in actuality, all these markings were made by the same beast. And that beast lands heavily right behind them, and attempts to swipe at them with its giant claws. It's a gungi, which is a black tiger with gigantic white wings, and also one of the 4 deadly mythical monsters of Chinese mythology. Si-hoon expected to have to search for some time before finding it, but instead, the beast came right to them. That means the dungeon is close by since this beast has been lurking around it. Right then, the 4th main quest shows up, and it's a quest to defeat the creature before it completely destroys the city. Si-hoon and Jisoo happen to encounter it unexpectedly soon, which is why the quest only popped out for the 2 of them. Jisoo also notices that there's an incredibly strong blood scent coming from somewhere nearby. Si-hoon also notices a horn embedded in the gungi's chest, which means that it came across another beast recently. The creature tries to attack Si-hoon one last time before running away. The horn in the creature's chest wasn't supposed to happen for a long time according to Si-hoon's memories from his past life. It looks like things are starting to change from what he remembers with the creature gone. Si-hoon runs into the dungeon with Jisoo close behind. And just like he expected, the dungeon wasn't the gungi's lair. It belonged to a Kirin, which is a one-horned divine beast. And that horn with divine power has been embedded in the chest of the already powerful gungi. The Kirin's horn has great potential energy, and it's the source of the beast's power. Si-hoon originally planned to go for the Kirin's horn while they searched for the gungi, but that plan has been ruined. On top of that, if the gungi manages to absorb the horn's power, then it will be a major threat. Jisoo suggests that they search the area since there might be a hidden reward somewhere. But since the dungeon's tier isn't very high, there's probably nothing good enough to replace the Kirin's horn with. However, unexpectedly, Jisoo finds something among the wreckage in the area. Si-hoon wonders if it's mithril, which is the strongest metal right after orichalcum. But even that wouldn't be enough to replace the horn. What Jisoo found is actually an egg, and it's no ordinary egg either. It's the egg of a Kirin, and usually when a Kirin sits on it for a long time, a new Kirin is born. However, now that they have it, they can use it to form a divine beast. Si-hoon immediately buys more items from his premium store and prepares the equipment that he will need to hatch the Kirin fruit and birth a new divine beast. After setting everything up, all they need to do is add a player's blood as the catalyst. The blood has to be applied within the next 48 hours, and the blood will also directly affect the player's stats and abilities. Si-hoon knows for sure that they can do better than his blood, and he initially considers using Jisoo's blood. However, her Celestial Slayer abilities could make things complicated in the future. Then he considers using Mina, since it would be impossible to find a decent player within the time limit. Mina's stats and abilities are better than average anyways, so it should work out. As he's trying to figure out what to do, he gets a message from Mina, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Mina waits with the family of 2 in the rubble of the ruined streets. Si-hoon never replied to her, and she has no idea if he's even coming or not. Eventually, he sends a message back to her, asking her where she is at the moment. Not even a compliment or anything for her hard work. She begrudgingly tells him where they are, and after a brief moment with more silence, Jisoo and Si-hoon appear right behind her out of nowhere. From the sweat on their bodies and the lack of breath, it looks like both of them ran back from Taejun. Luke comes to introduce himself to the new arrivals while his daughter hides behind him. Si-hoon introduces himself and Jisoo, and Luke assumes that Mina must have given them his name since they have just met, and Si-hoon already seems to know him. With introductions done, Si-hoon turns to Mina, and she's still annoyed that he didn't even compliment her for her hard work, so he gives her a gift to say thank you for everything she's done for him so far. It's a mithril, or which should be good for her to eat since she can absorb it into her body. Mina can barely believe that she got something so precious, and her anger quickly diffuses as she receives the gift. Next, he goes over to Lin and shows her the divine beast egg. He is going to need her help to awaken it, and all she has to do is lay her hand on it. Despite her fears of something bad happening, Luke encourages her to go ahead with it since Si-hoon doesn't seem like a bad person. She places her hand on top of the egg, and immediately, a sharp spike comes out from the top and pricks her hand, causing her to bleed. He lies that the outer layer of the egg must have scrapped her hand. The John is done though, and the tools accept Lin's blood as the catalyst for the fruit of Kirin. All he needs to do now is add some nourishment and wait for it to hatch. Mina comes up and asks why exactly she was supposed to find these two people anyways. But it's hard for Si-hoon to explain. She'll figure it out eventually, but for now, he wants Mina to stick with them as much as she can. That won't be too hard since they seem to trust them, and she is already expecting a reward for doing it. Originally, Si-hoon thought he wouldn't need anyone else since it's his second playthrough, but he realized something after seeing how Kara's and the Minotaur had changed. He will need to take the system's intervention into consideration from now on, and that's why he will need Lynn Taylor, the player whose strength and talent surprised even the gods themselves. She is the pinnacle of humanity. Now that the catalyst has been added, the egg starts to grow, and it looks like it's preparing to hatch. Si-hoon tells Lynn that she doesn't need to call him Mr. since he's not that old, but Mina reminds him that he's 10 older than her. Mina also considers calling him Mr. since he's 4 years older than her as well. That angers Jisoo though, and Mina clarifies that it's a joke to avoid Jisoo's intense stare. Now that they are done with introductions, it's time for the next course of action. Mina asks Si-hoon if he's going back to Taejun, but it's not like he can defeat the raid boss even if he goes back there right now. Mina still thinks that the raid boss hasn't spawned, but Jisoo clarifies that they have already run into it once. The three of them step away for a moment to explain everything that has happened so far to Mina. The raid boss is large and it's comparable to a sentinel in strength. The sentinel may be stronger in combat, but the raid boss has a lot of health points, so it's a lot harder to kill. It also has a much larger range of action than a sentinel, so the damage it could cause would be much worse. All of that means that Si-hoon should hurry up and kill it, but it's far too early for that, and the other players wouldn't be ready for it right now. There's also a new variable to consider with the raid boss since it is in the process of absorbing a Kirin horn. Si-hoon tries to remember if the raid boss got stabbed with a Kirin horn in his last life as well, or if something changed when he decided to go to Taejun. He never traveled to Taejun in his previous life, but the raid boss ambushed them as if it were waiting for them. On top of that, it left a lot of obvious traces as if it were trying to lure them in. The Gungi also engaged with the Kirin way too early as well, and it hasn't even been 3 days since the raid boss announcement was made. Too many things are uncertain right now, and it gets stranger the more he thinks about it. It could be the system trying to interfere with him again, or it could be a different reason. One thing that comes to mind is Arcadis, the GM of Korea. The god himself sits on his throne and watches a reply of Si-hoon and Jisoo fighting the Gungi. He didn't expect an ordinary player to get away so easily, and he even took something from the dungeon as he left. It's most likely a Kirin fruit, but Arcadis is sure that he wouldn't know how to hatch it, even if it were a Kirin fruit. The more important question is why the is so weak. It's completely worn out from a simple horn in its rib. Arcadis even gave it a chance to absorb the horn, but it's still weak. He then decides to change things in a way that wouldn't be too obvious by slightly raising its regeneration and adaptive abilities with this little buff. It may end up turning into a ridiculous monster. 2 weeks later, a lot closer to the release of the raid boss, Si-hoon and Jisoo return to Taejun. There is a noticeably higher army presence there than the last time they visited. It's likely that they are trying to prove that they only lost the last invasion, because they weren't fully prepared. It's rather foolish though, since guns are completely ineffective against monsters. However, they may not do a lot of damage, but they certainly still hurt a lot. It would still be meaningless against a raid boss though. It would be better for them to leave it to the player to take care of it, but if they did that, then the players would gain more authority. The government has finally regained some power after the open world announcement, and they don't want to let go of that. Jisoo doesn't like it, but there's not much she can do to change it. Si-hoon encourages her to move to where the rest of the players are. For now, there are noticeably more players in Taejun than in his previous playthrough. It looks like a lot of them are looking for party members to defeat the raid boss, and others are preparing for the quest to begin. One of the people approaches him and asks if he wants to join their party, but Si-hoon refuses since he has no plan of joining a party. The player continues to pester him some more, assuming that he is just refusing because he wants to leave an impression in front of the girl, but people who act like that will only end up dying in the end. As Si-hoon and Jisoo ignore them and walk away, the man walks away in a huff, convinced that both of them will learn their lesson sooner or later. It's painfully obvious, though, that the guy is the one who's trying to impress Jisoo. He obviously wants her to join his party, but he clearly doesn't know what he's dealing with. Jisoo overhears his snarky attitude and offers to take care of the guy, but Si-hoon calms her down and tells her to just keep moving. They'll be the first ones to go when the raid boss appears anyway. As they continue to walk in the crowd, Si-hoon notices Dongguan Park lurking through the streets. Dongguanels notices him and immediately covers his face in an attempt to hide. His attempts are futile though, and Si-hoon quickly walks up to him before he can walk away. According to Dongguan, Hyun-jae went to Cheongju to check on his family and he was told to come to Taejun. From his new gear, Si-hoon can tell that this guy got a lot done during his third quest and he should have obtained new abilities as well. It probably wasn't a succession ability yet, though, since those can't be acquired through any ordinary means. A chosen avatar can only learn one through a god, which is why the abilities are unconventionally powerful. Hyun-jae or An Honest Life must have been the ones to order Dongguan to come to Taejun. Si-hoon decides to take a quick peek in the god forums, and they are still talking about him since he defeated Kara's. Everyone speculates that he must be in Taejun since something interesting is happening. Their young jester is still disappointed that Mina decided not to follow him, but she reveals that he left something interesting with her. However, despite others prying in, she refuses to tell them what that interesting thing is. It's obvious that she's talking about the Kirin fruit, but knowing her, she will keep the knowledge to herself since she doesn't like to share any info. Luke Taylor's goddess should also be fine to trust since she's not one to spread rumors. Then he turns his attention back to Dongguan and asks if he managed to learn the crown manipulation ability. Dongguan tries to lie, but Si-hoon shows off the crystal controlling his collar, and that changes his attitude immediately. He reveals that he learned it, and Si-hoon is about to tell him to use it, but one of his crows in the sky spots something dangerous. He changes his tone and orders Dongguan to use the ability immediately, because if he doesn't, then everyone in the area will die. The raid boss is rapidly approaching their location, and it seems like it plans to ambush the players while they are unaware. There's still a lot of time left before it's meant to spawn, which means its main goal is to have a feast before the main battle. Since Dongguan is too slow on the uptake, Si-hoon tries to warn everyone to run before the boss shows up, but no one believes him. There's still 10 minutes before the raid boss is meant to arrive, and people think he's lying. They continue to ignore him, and it's clear that they won't be convinced by words alone, so he runs back to Dongguan and orders him again to use his ability. However, he can't just use it on anyone, and he first needs to be in a situation where he can get himself into the target's mind psychologically. Since that's the case, Si-hoon tells Jisoo to bring out her weapon and get ready. When he gives her a signal, he wants her to break a nearby fire hydrant to distract the people. Then, he tells Dongguan to use his crowd manipulation ability when the raid boss appears and puts everyone in a panic. Dongguan agrees, but even he doesn't think that the boss will appear. Even if it does, it's unlikely that the crowd would be so easily panicked by it. However, Si-hoon assures him that things are about to get wild, and he also prepares himself for battle. The ground starts to shake and people begin to look around in fear as the monster approaches. Some even check the time of the raid boss arrival, but it's already too late. The ground bursts open and a giant paw comes slamming down towards Si-hoon. He uses the pile bunker to counter it as Jisoo jumps in to aid him, slamming the paw back down to the ground, causing the monster to roar in pain. The other players start to realize that the raid boss really has shown up, and the military takes action immediately as well. They open fire towards the area that the monster came out of and empty every weapon that they have in its direction. However, once the smoke clears, the monster is still alive and well, and the soldiers start to retreat in fear as it stalks towards them. Then it roars one more time, fully clearing the smoke and showing that it had a major change in appearance with white fur now instead of black, and large red spikes growing all over its body. It looks like it's evolving to its final form, which will be a big problem for the players if it does. Once it properly evolves to its final form, the Gungi will be as strong as a sentinel, and on top of that, its active area will expand even further, making it more difficult to deal with for it to have taken the power of the horn so easily. That means that the GM was personally involved with this. The raid boss roars and starts attacking the people around. With no hesitation, the soldiers continue shooting at the raid boss with everything they have got. When the bullets show no effect on it, and its single breath makes them slide back from their positions, Kim Se-han yells at Dongguan to do what he was told earlier. Dongguan abides by the order, and using the skill crowd control, he urges the crowd to evacuate the place right away and leave it to the players. When they try to argue, he asks them to notice that the contemporary weapons are useless against the raid boss. However, before the crowd is convinced, Dongguan's ability's duration is over, whereas Kim Se-han thinks that the players have received their fourth main quest. This results in the crowd again charging towards the raid boss in order to attack it. When one of the civilians gets really close to it, the raid boss almost steps on the person. But Kim Se-han manages to save the man. He quickly thanks Se-han, saying that he let his guard down for a second, but Se-han advises him to be more cautious since the raid boss is not all about its size. Kim Se-han contemplates the best approach and weapon to attack the raid boss, whereas the civilians also note that the raid boss won't be affected by the long-ranged attacks. Kim Se-han worries about how to deal with the raid boss because it may turn into its final form at any time. Suddenly, the raid boss wings grow even larger, and then it flaps its wings while grunting and flies up in the sky. This results in even greater destruction of buildings as well as astonishment among the people since they were not expecting it to have flying capabilities. They argue whether they should run at this point or not since the raid boss is going to destroy the whole city if it attacks the ground. Kim Se-han decides to drag the raid boss down before it can attack the ground. He connects his spears with chains and throws them at the raid boss in the sky, which makes the civilians surprised at his strength. Kim Se-han calls out the people from the crowd to help him pull down the raid boss with the chains. When the civilians see that Han Jisoo has already joined Kim Se-han, they realize that if the girl can do so, then they can too. Therefore, the people join in and start pulling the chains on the command. They all pull it down with a jerk, and the raid boss falls down on the ground, but blue currents start regulating through its body. Kim Se-han wonders if its metamorphosis has begun to transform him into its final stage. Thus, in order to stop it, he jumps up high and pierces his sharp weapon into the raid boss face. However, after a loud grunt, the raid boss jumps up unaffected once again, which makes Kim Se-han admit its toughness and strength. Kim Se-han wonders why his attack was ineffective when he clearly felt his attack hitting its skull. Han Jisoo tells him to leave it on her because she is better equipped to deal with the raid boss. With that said, she stabs her own heart to maximize the Celestial Slayer's effect, amplifying the damage output. The regeneration ability heals the wound immediately, enabling her to move like that. Han Jisoo jumps up high and lands on the head of the raid boss. When Kim Se-han has realized the moves of Han Jisoo, he instructs everyone to move back as far as they can. She hits the raid boss head with her full strength, and as the people run away, it hits his head on the ground. With the last swing of her weapon, she makes the last hit and the raid boss grunts loudly in pain. The raid boss grunts and roars out loud with an attempt to attack Han Jisoo. She is about to make another hit at the raid boss when Kim Se-han shouts out her name, telling her to stop since it might get quite dangerous for her in this situation. After receiving several powerful hits by Jisoo, the raid boss grunts in pain and bites down on her. However, it fails to swallow them due to their magical properties. The raid boss loses its calm and starts grunting and roaring, while shaking his head around. The crowd wonders what's happening to it until the raid boss loses his consciousness and falls on the ground. People start getting closer to it in order to check if the raid boss is still alive or dead. While the people are taking closer looks at the raid boss, Jisoo suddenly comes out of its mouth and walks over to Se-han. The chat room of the region of the South Korean server goes crazy when they get to know how Kim Se-han and Jisoo managed to kill the raid boss. After praising them and Donggun, people start to discuss why their regional raid boss's stats were quite higher than they should have been. This raises their suspicion over the fact that GM might be involved in raising the stats of the raid boss. When asked the reason for this suspicion by a fellow player, the player explains that everyone else is also saying this because the GM even killed Kara's. One of them suggests submitting feedback, mentioning the danger of the GM starting to harm even the avatars if they let him be. Therefore, they mutually decide to put an end to this by submitting their feedback. This is how, with the suggestion of Kim Se-han, Anonymous Player 48, GM Arcadus failed to interfere with the Korean server for some time. As a reward after defeating the raid boss, Se-han receives the Code of Gungi, and after reading through its description, he realizes that Gungi had reached its final form right before Jisoo finished it off. He is already surprised to know this when Jisoo shows that she's received the Dark Gem of Sacred Dissonance in her inventory. After looking at it, Se-han's astonishment grows even more, and he plans about how they can make an extremely powerful weapon out of this. However, he realizes that they're missing some of the necessary material, but he still feels thankful to Arcadus for this. Jisoo offers her reward to Se-han, saying that she only finished the raid boss off at the end while he did all the work, but he refuses to take it, telling her she should keep it since it can come in handy when she eventually finds some good materials. He further says to her that gold rank is a good enough reward for him, since a lot of players got involved too. When Jisoo claims that she's also acquired gold rank, Donggun comes to them and reveals that he has received a silver rank. They fail to believe how Donggun managed to get a silver rank when he was only running away the whole time, so he reminds them how he secured the area for a fight by evacuating everyone. Han Jisoo questions Kim Se-han if her involvement in the fight lowered his rank to gold, but he refuses, saying that if she hadn't been involved, the fight would have gone on much longer. He then asks Donggun if he has anything to do, to which Donggun affirms he thinks how it would have been better if Donggun had stayed with Hyunjae but allows him anyway with a warning. Before leaving for Seoul, Jisoo expresses her worries about her mother's whereabouts. This makes Se-han wonder why her mother didn't reveal her location to Jisoo. Se-han then looks at Jisoo and wonders what would have become of her had he not killed her in her previous life. Thus, he sees her as his milestone since she represents the possibility of change in destinies. A few men drag little kids with them as the kids are tied to each other like animals and cry. The men wonder if their higher-ups asked for children to get their soul and blood since the higher-ups are demons. Suddenly, Janshin arrives there in order to find someone who intruded into his area. When asked about who he is, Shinjan claims that he doesn't know that. Therefore, he's decided to kill everyone there. Mina and Taelin are walking by the streets while carrying grocery bags when Taelin thanks Mina for enabling them to afford more with their points. Mina also flaunts her gold rating. However, she secretly admits that it became possible because of the grimoire that Kim Se-han had given her. Suddenly, someone creeps up to Mina from behind, and with the help of Taelin, Mina manages to dodge the attack of the man. She then slices the man's weapon into two by transforming her hand into a blade and punches his face with a metal fist. The man falls to the ground and his partner realizes that the kids are not ordinary. Thus, he calls out all of their gang members out of the alleys to attack the girls together. Out of nowhere, the eyes of the first man change, and Mina wonders if he's a humanoid monster. However, Mina stays confident and transforms her arms into that of a mantis when she starts to slice off their weapons with a single swing of her arms. One of the men commands the other to go after Taelin. The men run towards Taelin, but she manages to dodge their attack. Minsu feels relieved to see that, and runs towards the men to finish them off. However, the men quickly escape the place. After feeling relieved about the situation, Mina notices that the blood flowing from the injured or dead gangsters is black. She feels suspicious about it, so she decides to discuss it with Kim Se-han later when he returns. After Kim Se-han has come back, Lemia informs him about how she and Lynn Taylor got ambushed by some suspicious thugs. He thinks through the situation and realizes that their dark blood signifies that they were the servants of the demon, which means they belong to the Dark Sky clan. This makes him wonder why they're wasting their time around instead of growing their strength, and he questions himself if this is because Kim Ju-won is gone now. Kim Se-han thinks about how the Dark Sky clan couldn't have had any authority over Seoul because of Kim Ju-won's guild, the Sins, if things were to go exactly like the previous life. However, since the Sins aren't here, the Dark Sky clan has gained influence. And Kim Se-han has unintentionally accelerated the demon's advancement in Seoul. When Lynn Taylor asks Kim Se-han about whether he knows who those people could be, he affirms before answering. He looks around at Mr. Taylor and gets surprised by his worried expression in concern for his daughter. Lynn Taylor he then informs the girls that those thugs were most probably associated with a demon. However, he claims that he isn't aware of their whereabouts since he never got to handle them in his previous playthrough. Jisoo steps forward and confesses about knowing where those thugs might be. She reminds Se-han about her third main quest, which she found quite difficult to clear, and he quickly remembers it since he had to defeat Karas at that time. She continues that she also met a dark-blooded person there.